Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good evening. Another day of turmoil in Westminster. I've just come from there and I can tell you every single person had one question on their lips. When, possibly if, but probably when, is Keir Starmer going to go? The Daily Star has sent out its reporter to buy the lettuce. That's where we are right now on the 12th of May 2026 at 7:02. We're going to get the lowdown from a panel of great experts. Isabel Oakeshott is coming up in just a second. We'll hear what all the different parliamentarians, MPs, cabinet members have been saying today, rallying round Keir Starmer, whilst at the same time the vultures circle above. Wes Streeting, when's he going to strike? He's apparently going to be speaking to the Prime Minister tomorrow. He didn't have time, Keir Starmer, to speak to Wes Streeting today. Daggers at dawn, almost dawn, at cabinet as well. This is the main story dominating what we're doing tonight. I want your views on it as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell, send me a WhatsApp text message, send me a WhatsApp voice message, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. I'll take you through the day. I'll tell you everything that's happened. Maybe you haven't been watching every single bit of news. We'll tell you everything you need to know right now about the position of the Prime Minister and what could possibly come next. So stay with us here on the Evening Exchange on Talk. Well, when you're in a crisis, you send out your closest and dearest loyalist. Darren Jones is the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. He's essentially Keir Starmer's representative on earth. He spoke to Sky News this morning, the beginning of yet another dramatic day. This is what Darren Jones told Sky News.
Not going to get ahead of any decision that the Prime Minister may or may not take. He was very clear yesterday that he will not be walking away, as some of my colleagues have asked him to do. I've observed we've got over 400 Labour MPs in the House of Commons. I don't belittle the, I think now 70 who have raised concerns publicly. All I would say is that the vast majority of us are focused on using the time we have in government to be able to deliver the types of change for people across the country that we're also passionate about delivering, but that we have to work together then as a party in this new political era of five-party politics, of the rise of populist parties in our country, to be able to set the course for winning that next election. And as I say, I believe we can win that election because I think our Labour values of equality, of opportunity, of solidarity, of bringing the country together and rising to the challenges of the future are the values that will win at the ballot box in 2029.
Darren Jones there, the Chief Secretary of the Prime Minister, saying that despite the fact 87 Labour MPs have called for Keir Starmer to go, OK, there are 100 plus backbenchers who have signed a letter supporting the Prime Minister, but he says that Labour can win the next election. Darren, where were you on Friday morning? Because I'll tell you where I was. I was glued to my phone, seeing some of the numbers that were coming through rapidly about councils, about people right across the country, Scotland, Wales, and in many parts of England, who were saying no to Labour. They lost 1,500 councillors, a very serious number. But of course, the question is, what does the Cabinet do? Are they rallying round Keir Starmer? What are they saying? Darren Jones is someone you would completely think, if he's not loyal to Keir Starmer, who is? Another person, Steve Reid, the Housing Secretary, pledged his support for Starmer. This is what he said.
The Prime Minister has my full support. The Labour Party has a process for triggering a leadership election. That has not happened, so we all intend to get on with our jobs, and that's what I'm going to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
What did the Cabinet say to him, sir?
Media scrum at Downing Street today, getting the words of the Housing Secretary, Steve Reid there. He has his full support. It's never good when you have to say the Prime Minister has my full support. It's never good when the Prime Minister says he or she has my full support, as Peter Mandelson and many others will tell you, Morgan McSweeney, Sue Gray, and all the names that have gone into the political history books as falling foul of Starmer. Could he be next? And what should be next? Harriet Harman is an interesting character. She's the former deputy leader of the Labour Party. And she has an interesting suggestion, talking to Sky News today, about Andy Burnham, the King of the North himself, who's reportedly in London today, I'm sure plotting away. This is what Harriet Harman told Sky News.
If we're looking at having a team of all the talents when the country's facing terrible odds and the Labour Party is got a cloud hanging over it, clearly Andy is part of the solution to that. And could it be that Keir Starmer could say, actually, we need all the people in cabinet to be the very best people for the country, and that includes Andy Burnham, and I'm going to call him back in and he's going to be part of my government.
Are you saying now you think that the PM should allow Andy Burnham back, that actually it would be a good idea to let Andy Burnham come back to Westminster?
Well, if he can construct a sense that the cabinet is there to support the Prime Minister to do the best for the country in very difficult circumstances, if he can really build that sense, then why on earth would he not have Andy Burnham as part of that?
A lot of what ifs in all of that, and also why bring in your chief rival? Well, as Abraham Lincoln knew, in his team of rivals, you keep your enemies close and your friends close and your enemies even closer, and your rivals, if they are as good or better than you keep them in cabinet as well. All those three clips, I should say, from Sky News. Streeting himself, Wes Streeting, another challenger to the Prime Minister, he's to hold a showdown meeting with Starmer tomorrow in Downing Street. Let's get the thoughts of our international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, where on earth are we?
I mean, kind of God knows. I'm like you. I've spent all today with running news. I've got two laptops, this one that I'm talking into, and then I've got another one which has had the running news on the whole time.
It's hard to keep up.
Literally, at certain stages today, there were resignations within minutes of each other and multiple happening all the time. So where are we tonight? Well, it's obvious that this is completely unsustainable. I can't think that there is any world in which Starmer leads his party into the next general election.
They're going to win it, though. Darren Jones says they're going to win it. Are you saying you don't believe Darren Jones, Isabel?
I'm saying there's 3 years till the next general election, but they're not. What I will say is there is no way they're winning it under Keir Starmer.
Yes.
And apart from Keir Starmer himself, I think they all know that.
Yes.
We all know the scenario of all those people who would stand to lose their jobs, be demoted, be booted out of cabinet if there's a change of leader. And that's what we've seen a lot of today. Those are the people that have been coming out, the vested interests, the David Lammys, currently Deputy Prime Minister. Under no other regime is it likely that he would continue in that role. So the people that are coming out with their protestations of loyalty are, in general, have been the ones that have got the most to lose themselves if the Prime Minister is ousted. But it's obvious politically unsustainable for however many we're up to now. I don't know what the latest number is, over 80.
It's 87, I think, at the moment. It's hard to tell because different people say different things, but it seems to be 87 who are against. But over 100 backbenchers have signed a pledge for the Prime Minister, and we can reasonably assume that all the ministers, anyway, outwardly, are for the Prime Minister, but it's a very divided Labour Party.
That 100 that you mentioned there, is that 100 backbenchers, 100 that are not on the government payroll?
Yeah, very good point.
I haven't seen those names, and I don't.
Sorry,
know
the 100. Sorry, you mean the 100 backbenchers there?
Oh, you said backbenchers.
Yeah,
so
backbenchers. Yeah, so they're not on the government payroll. So there's quite a lot of the party behind Keir Starmer.
Well,
still is a lot not.
It's a number, but there are 400 plus MPs.
Yes.
So it's only a quarter of them.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter. We can argue about, 100, 105, 80, whatever. There are far too many people now who have publicly said they have no confidence in Keir Starmer for him to be able to recover the position and run a smooth running to lead a smooth running administration. And I just listened to Harriet Harman there suggesting that maybe government of all the talents would bring back Andy Burnham under Keir Starmer. I mean, what a ludicrous prospect if already such a significant proportion of the party, the parliamentary party, don't think Keir Starmer's up to the job. How would it help to bring back someone that many of them think would be better? How's that going to...
It's just desperate times, Isabel, and it's desperate when you bring back Harriet Harman. It's desperate when you bring back Gordon Brown. I mean, who on earth thought that was a good idea? And it's very weird to think that it's only been 5 days since the council election. So much has happened. We had that absolute damp squib of a speech. You've had so many people saying so many things. You've got Harriet Harman back in as, you know, the advisor on women. She doesn't seem to know what a woman is, which is another point in all of that too. And you have Keir Starmer clinging on. I mean, he was talking to apprentices this afternoon. He was apparently going around the business of being Prime Minister. But yet again, it comes back to him not being able to understand the politics. He needed to have a discussion with Wes Streeting this morning. He refused. The Parliamentary Labour Party wanted to have a meeting with him this evening. He said he didn't have time.
I mean, just extraordinary. When I heard that he was going to speak to apprentices, I mean, someone actually messaged me. It came very indirect to say that their daughter was at the college or wherever it is he was going to. And the parents were absolutely appalled that Keir Starmer was turning up. And I can't really blame them. I mean, what was he thinking of? He's in an a career existential crisis. I cannot fathom any world in which it was bright or smart or politically astute to leave Downing Street and go into something else. Now, he would say, well, there are all these people that couldn't wait for my visit and I don't want to let them down and so on. Well, it may very well prove to be his last visit at this
Well, exactly.
rate.
And you've got to have, when you're in that situation, you've got to have the Praetorian Guard around you. You've got to be sitting at the cabinet table saying, who are we ringing? Who are we talking to? Who are we persuading? Who are we getting to go on the record to say I'm a fantastic Prime Minister? It needs to be a nakedly down and dirty political operation. And he is just not a political operator. I think he's going to be sort of swept away rather than deposed, really.
It's hard to really predict precisely what is going to happen, but I just keep coming back to the point that it's not possible to rebuild this. It's like a beautiful vase, the Ming vase that he talked about not dropping in the run up to the general election. Let's carry that vase so delicately, not take any risks with it until the election. That vase has been dropped. Yeah. It's properly smashed on the floor. And it's far too complex to put that back together. And even if you did put that back together, it would have all these cracks all over it. The slightest bit of pressure, the whole thing would fall apart again. And that is exactly where we are. Maybe he can, I don't believe he can, but maybe there'll be some people say maybe he can stagger on a bit longer. The very latest this is going to work is if he says, I'm stepping down. This is my timetable for setting down. And there is plenty of precedent for prime ministers doing that. Remember David Cameron, I can't remember how quickly he went, but he was leaving after the Brexit vote. There have been many of them that have set out a timetable. Most famously, of course, Blair, who gave almost a year, I think, before he stepped down. Michael Howard, there's been quite a lot of them. So he could do that. But the problem is, with that extended timetable, which most people seem to think is the most likely scenario, nothing of any meaning is going to get done between now and then, is it? Because they're all just going to be running around working out.
And I worry about the King being drawn into this because, of course, it is the King's speech tomorrow.
Well, that actually appears to have played in Starmer's favour, buying him a few precious extra hours to try to come up with some kind of salvage operation. It won't work, but it does seem to have caused some people just to hold back, potentially until after the King has delivered his speech, Labour not wanting to bring that colossal embarrassment of basically having to say, Your Majesty, you don't really have a government at this point. So could you just give us a few weeks, but it might be a few months. We can't tell you, sir. I mean, that doesn't really work. Very good points there, Isabel. Thanks for joining us. Isabel Oakeshott there, international editor here at Talk.
we know that West Trading is to hold a showdown meeting tomorrow. It's the King's speech as well. That will happen probably in the 11 o'clock hour. I'll be in studio with Julie Hartley-Brewer tomorrow morning from 11 to 12. She'll be presenting, but I'll be the sort of pundit beside her, as others will, as well as we go through all of that. So do tune in tomorrow to Julia's show anyway between 10 and 1, but I'll be here between 11 and 12. Shirley's been in touch and says, I haven't heard anyone say Starmer calling Farage a grifter and a chancer. Has anyone looked up the definition of a grifter? Well, we certainly ran that clip yesterday because he said that in his speech. Timothy Dolan in Barnsley in South Yorkshire says, great show as usual. Thank you, Timothy. I think when or if Keir Starmer is removed as Prime Minister, I will hedge my bets at the next general election he will stand down to avoid the very real possibility of losing his seat. I really don't know why he wants this job when he gets so much abuse and flack. Penny in Essex says, good evening, Peter. Good evening, Penny. Starmer is unbelievable. He has no pride, no shame, no idea. A total disgrace. He just wants to continue to receive a massive salary for destroying a once great country, allowing the UK to virtually become another country, encouraging anti-Semitism, disrespecting his own people, especially pensioners and farmers, and giving our money to migrants and treating them better than his own. And he just wants to swan around the world like the celebrity he isn't. He has to go. He just has to. Everyone I know loathes him, says Penny. Kevin in Basingstoke is the first caller of our programme this evening. 0344 499 1000 is the number he's called. Kevin, what's your perspective on this? What do you think of Keir Starmer?
Well, can I just say before I say what I phoned in for, Isabella makes me laugh. She's always criticising people from working home, but she's always working from home. But anyway, I don't think Keir Starmer is...
Well, listen, she's in the studio quite a lot, and I work from home as well sometimes, so there we are. But anyway, what point would you make, Kevin?
Anyway, Keir Starmer, it's not that bad. I mean, he's taken the country too far to the right for my liking. I'd rather have Andy Burnham or Angela Rayner in charge. But, I mean, the criticism he gets is unfair because there was all that talk about him getting freebies, but the parliamentary register of freebies, he's registered £110,000 worth of free gifts. Well, Nigel Farage has registered 130,000.
Okay, I don't know the detail of that, but if we just go back, Kevin, to what you're saying about Keir Starmer there, when you're saying he's not that bad, I mean that's about the nicest thing I've heard anybody say all day about Keir Starmer. He's not that bad, and if you would obviously want someone more on the left, and that's absolutely fine to say. I just wonder if the country is in Sorry.
He's not a horrible person. I mean, I don't know him, but I've heard lots of people that do know him say he's a really nice person.
But that doesn't necessarily make you... I mean, there are lots of nice people I know who wouldn't make a good Prime Minister, and you can have a nice person, but does that make... or a not bad person, or he's not that bad kind of person, who makes a terrible Prime Minister? Because you've got to have certain skills. Do you think he has them?
Well, I mean, he improved the minimum wage.
That's an easy thing to do, is it not?
Well, he improved workers' rights, increased the minimum wage. Okay. Nigel Farage didn't vote for either of those things. Nigel Farage is going to take away scrap the Equalities Act. I mean, that would be terrible.
We also have, an election the other day that shows that, Labour lost almost as many councillors as Reform UK gained. I mean, there are many people who will believe what you believe, but more people are moving in the direction of Reform UK, and that doesn't seem to be a matter for them. They say they want strong leadership. They don't feel they're getting that from Keir Starmer.
Yeah, but I mean, GB News loses £30 to £40 million a year promoting Nigel Farage and putting down Keir Starmer.
I'm just not going to talk about another media company, Kevin, but I just wonder what you think Keir Starmer should do now.
Well, I mean, I think he should go personally, but because I don't like for me, he's like I said, he's too far to the right. I voted Labour because I wanted a Labour government to be more.
But if you're outvoted, Kevin, as you were on Thursday by many people who don't, that's democracy, isn't it?
I know it's democracy, but I mean.
But I suppose the point I'm making is that he was given this huge democratic mandate, Kevin, less than 2 years ago. 411 Labour MPs were elected, and he hasn't done a huge amount with it. Or maybe he has done a decent amount with it, as perhaps you would say, but that hasn't got through to people, and people don't know or care, really, what he's done when he keeps banging on about breakfast clubs.
Thing is, I don't like the idea. I think we need proportional representation. He got into power with 34% of the vote. So
okay, I mean, you may think that, Kevin, but presumably you were happy on the morning of the 8th of July 2024 when Keir Starmer got a big mandate. So my question is not really about proportional representation. It's more about the fact that Keir Starmer had a lot of power and he doesn't seem to have used it in a way that people appreciate or have are connected.
To use it. He's too scared to use it.
He's too scared to use it.
Yeah, he's too scared to use his power. He's too scared of what the what the media say, instead of just being tough and saying, right, I'm doing this because it's the right thing.
Well, the media had quite a lot to say, Kevin, about the Employment Rights Bill. The media had quite a lot to say about the Winter Fuel Allowance U-turn, for example. So, and I mean, do you really want a Prime Minister who's scared of the media?
No, I don't. That's what I'm saying.
Shouldn't would you be happy for him to go then?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, and you think Angela Rayner is the answer?
I think Angela Rayner or Andy Burnham is much better because they're not as right wing as he is. He, I want somebody that really cares for working class people.
Okay, Kevin, thanks for your call. Appreciate that. I'm not sure a huge number of people are going to agree with you, but I really appreciate that perspective. We're going to hear in just a second from our debate desk. We'll have the Labour commentator Sebastian Salek. He'll be on with Claire Muldoon. We'll talk to them in just a second. But before I do, let me get a few of your messages on Jess Phillips. Lorraine has been in touch. She resigned today. Jess Phillips, that is, not Lorraine. We must never forget that Jess Phillips and Labour did everything they could to prevent the inquiry, including all voting against a national inquiry into rape gangs. Phillips's behaviour in Parliament was a disgrace. She is not the victim here and her dramatics were shameful. Labour were hemorrhaging votes and were desperate to appease the Muslim vote. Jess Phillips happily sacrificed these girls on the altar of Labour's parliamentary seats. The real scandal has always been about protecting ethnicity and not the girls. Remember, they think this is dog whistle, says Lorraine. Yeah, it was Lucy Powell, actually, the deputy leader of the Labour Party, who called it a dog whistle issue. Gaz says, good evening, Peter. Just a thing on council elections last week. They were shocking for Labour. Wait until all of us can vote, because not everybody did last week who could. That's a very good point, actually. Turnout was higher than usual, about 8 points higher than usual. But of course, there are lots of areas of England that couldn't vote. And of course, there's Northern Ireland as well. Melanie in Staffordshire says, regarding Harriet Harman's ideology, if it is so important that in times of difficulty the Labour Party needs to have the best people, then why on earth did they not have the best people in the first place to avoid the difficulty? That is an excellent point. What and who on earth are people voting for? How did Starmer choose his cabinet in the first place? He clearly did not do a DBS check, that is for certain. The mind boggles. Very interesting from you on that. And Graham in Bushy says, if Starmer announces that he is stepping down, will he perform a U-turn on that decision a few days later? Very interesting point. We'll go to the debate desk next. I want to get all your points on the air as well. Do give me a shout. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Stay with us here on Talk.
The offer to be the voice of a sheep.
Yes, you can only dream, really.
Kelly Riley and Cole Hauser. How much of Rip does your husband in real life have about him?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's a man.
He's a dude. Kirsty and Phil.
Can we me talk about one other thing.
You talk about loads of things. It's an interview.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, we're on the debate desk now with Claire Muldoon, the political commentator, and Sebastian Salek is here too, recently relieved of command of his time as a Labour councillor, so you're back to
civilian life.
Back to civilian life, yeah, absolutely. What a journey it has been, certainly for so many Labour people in the last few days. It must have been very disappointing for you on Friday morning, but was it expected?
In a sense it was. I think for us more so in North East London we had demographic shifts, so we lost to the Greens. They've taken our council, which introduces a whole load of uncertainty for us. I will watch with interest. I'm going to be the annoying man who turns up to planning meetings to approve everything and speak out in favour of it. But no, I think a lot of it was expected across the country, both Greens and Reform. It just speaks to the fracturing of politics that we've seen play out really since 2010. If you look at every election, something weird has happened, and it's just more of that.
And how it's more of that, but how much of that is the effect or the lack of leadership of Keir Starmer?
I think a lot of it comes down to his very, very difficult hand that he inherited. It really does take more than...
He did create a number of problems for himself, like Mandelson, for example.
He did create a lot of problems. He's made a lot of mistakes. But I think anybody who came in with that inheritance was going to struggle to turn it around in less than 2 years. I'm not surprised to an extent that we are where we are. And it's a shame that it looks like he may not get his full term to be able to see out that agenda.
I mean, I couldn't disagree more, actually, to be fair, Sebastian, because we can blame 14 years of Conservative ruling, right, that, you know, that's happened, OK, that's in the past. Ultimately, Keir Starmer led a party that had almost 14 years in opposition. He wasn't the leader for that whole time, granted. But they could have come up with some policy. They could have come up with some ideas of how to push the economy forward, push education forward, help the health service, and he could have.
But they have.
No, Sebastian, don't start about the boats and don't start about waiting lists.
I'm not going to talk about
because
that.
none of that.
Let her speak. We'll come back to
none of that has finished at all. However, when Starmer appointed Rachel Reeves as Chancellor of the Exchequer, her first budget, nightmare. He signed off on it, gave it to the King, got it approved, etc., etc. I said then, he'll be out by the May local elections. I don't take any pride in what I say come true. I don't think it's good enough for the country to have leaders. I mean, 6 prime ministers within, what, 7 years?
I think it's 7 prime ministers in 10 years, if there's a new one. Yeah.
I mean, that's
hard to keep track.
It's not
healthy, good for stability.
And it's not good. It's not good for the markets. It's not good for the global stage. It's not good, first and foremost, for us. It really, really isn't. And I don't think the policy that Starmer did implement hit well, because I don't think he is a man of the people, ironically.
If he says breakfast clubs one more time, I think I might scream. Sebastian, what has Starmer done? What are we missing here? Because he keeps saying that he's done wonderful things for the country. What are those things?
Well, let's put it into perspective first. There have been more bills passed, or more manifesto pledges met, put it like that, than Reform have in their entire manifesto. So a lot has been done in the last, almost 2 years.
But Reform has never been an elected party.
Sure, but they are a party that stood and won MPs last time and put a lot of promises forward.
They decided to have a small manifesto. The point is, let me just get back to the question.
Yeah.
What is it that the Labour Party has done to change lives, to make the country better? Because there are lots of people who are, I'm politically homeless, I used to be Conservative, as you know, totally politically homeless, and I can't see how my economic situation, how my life, and many, many people who are in a much worse position than I am, is better than it was 2 years ago.
I don't think it necessarily is better now, but laws have been passed that are going to take time to play out. And one example I'll give you is cutting red tape on planning. That is a huge problem in this country. We haven't built a reservoir since 1992. We're not building enough housing whatsoever to ease the housing crisis. Labour has cut the red tape, which means that becomes much easier. There was a presumption in favour of development near stations, I think, for example. There are just ways that stop NIMBYs from blocking developments. Now, that isn't going to magic up a load of houses overnight, but what it means is that as the economy improves and private house builders want to come forward, it is easier for them to build those homes.
But surely what you need as a Prime Minister, if you're a proper strategic political brain, is to say, here's some short-term stuff that will make people feel grateful or will impress people. Here's the longer-term stuff we need to do. Do you think Keir Starmer has done that?
I think the quick wins have been lacking. And this is something that I was hoping for in the early days. Instead, we got into arguments about suits and glasses and winter fuel. Some of those were forced errors, some of them were unforced. But it took away the narrative from, here are the sweeties up front, now let's do the hard work.
Claire, so much of this, and I mentioned this on the air last night, actually, I had a discussion with someone who's very senior in Downing Street around the time of the winter fuel allowance debacle. And she said they just didn't think how it was emotionally having an impact on people. I mean, all politics is emotional. It's all about how you feel. It's how you feel about what's happening in your life. Why did they not see with those early errors? And I'm not sure it's got better. I'm not sure there are people around Keir Starmer saying, this is what you do to start. You don't go out and see apprentices this weekend, this afternoon. You sit in the cabinet room with a load of phones, people on their phones the whole time, shoring up support. That's what you do. You've got to be a political street fighter.
And you thrash it out. And you have a collective close to you who are on your side and, you know, who want to work for you, because ultimately you are working for the country. And what this now says to me is that Starmer wasn't. They actually had no confidence in his leadership at all. Why wasn't this triggered before now? Why does it always have to wait? We've got the Iran crisis still ongoing, the cost of living crisis made worse by the Iran crisis. We've got the global stage, we've got Trump in office, we've got Europe clicking at our heels. And what's Starmer doing? He's playing to Europe. He's not looking at domestic security for our own energy. He's not really addressing the cost of living issue. And as with regards to what's happened in Wales, I mean, it was shocking that Labour have been completely wiped out, completely from Wales.
We've got this very strange situation where yesterday morning, which seems a long time ago, his big idea, one of the three big ideas, was bring in more people from Europe and extend Erasmus. If you're a young person, or the father or mother of a young person, or the grandfather or grandmother, or any relation to a young person who can't get a job right now, you look at the Prime Minister and you say, right, your big idea to solve things is to bring in more people who can't really come here at the moment, but you're going to make them come in, and that will somehow boost the economy, even though they're competing for jobs that my grandson or my daughter or whoever can't get. It's weird. I just think he's a bit detached from the matrix.
Yeah, I mean, look, that was part of a wider package around Europe and closer relationships with Europe, which many people on the left want. And I say this is a massive Europhile. I don't think that offer yesterday went far enough. We're at a stage now where I'm beginning to wonder do we need really radical politics? I mean, we've seen moderately radical politics from the Labour Party, but do we need them to go much further? Because if they don't, the Greens will do it and Reform will. We've seen that they're both not scared of doing things that a lot of people won't like and seem very, very unconventional.
I want to talk about radical politics and who the radicals really are in all of this in just a second. We'll be back on the debate desk with Claire and with Sebastian, so stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you everybody who's been in touch, including Nick, who has some thoughts on Starmer. This is what he said in a voice note.
The chaos we're seeing is brought about by the fallibility of a government that was elected with a massive majority, but little mandate, because it was elected by approximately 20% of the eligible electorate, meaning that nearly 80% of the eligible electorate never voted for Labour. And this will ultimately be their downfall. Their downfall is now as inevitable as the chaos that we're experiencing because of their electoral luck.
Nick, really interesting voice note there, and thank you for it. Quite a number of people actually mentioning this. I want to talk about radicals in a second, but quite a number of people mentioning this, Sebastian and Claire, who are with me on the debate desk, about the whole sort of aspect of where we are with proportional representation, for example, that they don't feel invested, that you can have a very low vote share. That is the system that's there at the moment. The statistic I always find really interesting about proportional representation is how good, how much the Lib Dems wanted, but also how good they are with the system that is there already. 3.5 million people voted Lib Dem at the last general election. They got 72 MPs. 4.1 million people voted Reform UK. They got 5. Yeah. PR, does that work for you, Sebastian, or do you think the system at the moment is the one that works?
I think it's the least bad option at the moment, and I've always been very sceptical of PR for 2 reasons. The first is that you end up with very small coalitions who have to work together, and we've seen from our European friends and neighbours how that doesn't always lend itself well to quick decisions, powerful government, which is what we need at the moment. I think we can all agree on that. The other part of it is that you allow small fringe parties in, and if you think the Greens or Reform are bad, wait till you see what's to the left and to the right of them. We have some really, really crazy people in this country, and I do not want them sitting in the House of Commons. I do not want them influencing policy.
You see, I wouldn't say that Reform necessarily is fringe, to be honest with you, because
I don't think Sebastian's saying that.
No, those to the right of Reform are fringe.
Right, okay.
I'm talking about Restore and, and that ilk.
Well,
they wouldn't say
that.
They
wouldn't say that in their defence. Exactly. But I actually had a discussion about this, not only at our family meals, etc., but with neighbours that I've met on the street. And I've said for the first time there is such a division in this country between, and Brexit delivered that division as well, as did the Scottish independence vote, as have your Team Labour or Team Starmer or not. And I think there is a definite case now for proportional representation. We can always change it back. I think now we are in those unprecedented times. Therefore, I do think and I do hope for greater clarity, more hopefulness and less despair. And I think a collectively cross-parliamentary team can actually maybe navigate the Straits of Hormuz even. You know, try and use all the minds, all the best minds from all parties, get them to come together and work for us, because they've all been elected by someone.
Just talking about division, Steve Swinford, who is the political editor of the Times, he's the goat on all of this. He is the man who knows what's going on. He says he's just tweeted literally in the last minute, Ed Miliband has told cabinet ministers he is prepared to run for the Labour leadership if West Streeting triggers an imminent contest. The Times has been told. The former Labour leader is understood to back Andy Burnham as Keir Starmer's successor if he is forced out of number 10 in the wake of a mass revolt by Labour MPs. Miliband has previously told friends he does not want the Labour leadership and is viewed as a potential kingmaker for a Burnham premiership. However, the speed of the revolt by Labour MPs, more than 90 backbenchers, government aides and ministers have now gone public, has changed that assessment, says Stephen Swinford. 2 senior government sources said Miliband told cabinet colleagues he would be prepared to stand as the soft left's candidate to stop West Streeting from getting into number 10. The claim was categorically denied by Miliband. A source close to the Energy Secretary said this is mischief making. It is categorically untrue that Ed told cabinet colleagues that he was preparing to stand in case of a contest. Now, that is an interesting development, because if we're in a situation where there is a contest, probably someone from the soft left, someone Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband kind of character against a sort of right of the Labour Party, West Streeting sort of person. That's not outside the realms of possibility, Sebastian.
No, and I think what we're overlooking here is just how many candidates there could be. We're only really talking about 2 names. Before Ed Miliband entered the fray a minute ago, it was...
you need 81 MPs, so that's a tall order, isn't it?
You do, but remember that's only 20% of the party. So in theory, you could get, 4 candidates into the mix? So that's very normal, both for Tory leadership contests when they've been in government and for Labour leadership contests when they've been in opposition. So there could be a lot of names alongside Miliband who we're not talking about now who could be in contention to be the next Prime Minister?
Well, Al Carnes, he's been mentioned.
Al Carnes is certainly
he's tweeting away again today.
Not for the first time. He's on manoeuvres. The winner of the
I see what you
could
did
it be an ambush?
You smooth operator, you.
He's got the military cross. He could have.
He was
actually,
a Marine, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's got the military cross. Like he's a serious guy. He could have, in theory, gone the whole way up to the top of the army or the Royal Marines, but he decided not to. He decided to go into politics, which is very, very interesting. Some of the chaos today, like I've been involved in media scrums at various points, and it's never dignified. But some of what happened today, with people spilling coffee and tripping over wires, and then you forget you've got your microphone on, and you're made the boom mics and all the rest of it. Let's just have a little look at what is happening. If you keep my microphone up, I'll describe it for people who are listening on the radio. But this was a couple of people who are running after government ministers, getting slightly tangled up.
James, would you? James.
So this is James Murray coming out of Downing Street.
You get James Murray.
Beth Rigby, Sky, they're flying around him, trying to get microphones, tripping over things, not able to actually move in the direction of them because they're caught up.
No, there was nothing like
trying to get the big furry microphones from the boom.
We've got an issue there because I'm tethered.
Beth Rigby is tethered.
I know. Don't shackle Beth Rigby. That's what we're saying.
Me. You tethered
well, listen, we're going to take it.
People running after him there, trying to get interviews and so on.
I've done that.
It is just the sort of classic media scrum there, and the presenter Sarah Jane Me there, and Beth Rigby getting involved with that. I mean, some of the reporting as well is just kind of farcical, actually. I mean, there was a BBC guy earlier on, he's actually very good. I know him, Henry Zeffin, he's very good. But he said, oh, you know, West Streeting is very, very close to Peter Kyle, the business secretary. They went to see The Devil Wears Prada too.
They did, I saw that.
It's a bit random.
Do you know what it's like? As if Armando Iannuccio has come off Taskmaster and written a new thick of it. All we need is Malcolm Tucker effing and jeffing in the background.
Yes,
I'm more than happy to do it.
When I was a special advisor, I don't know if I've ever mentioned that, but I used to do that job, and I used to try and get in as many thick of it lines as I could.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. I once described a civil servant as so dense light bends around him, which was a Malcolm Tucker line. Right, you can wave a magic wand, guys. You can do whatever you want. You can have whoever you want. Can't be Claire Muldoon, can't be Sebastian Selleck. Although I'm sure you'd both choose each other as leader of the Labour Party. Who do you think it should be, Sebastian?
Oh, so okay, I'm going to get on my high horse here because I think the issue is we're getting far too carried away with personalities here, and what we need is solutions, and I haven't heard many solutions. So I want somebody with the answers. Whoever that is, they get a big tick in the box from me.
Who is the person in your mind who has the answers?
Well, we haven't heard from anybody yet, have we? Sorry, I'm being so evasive. I'm not deliberately trying to be coy.
You are.
No.
You don't want Twitter to go, oh, that's Sebastian Selleck, worked for the Labour Party, can't even come up with a name. Who does he think he is?
No, it's just...
yes,
we
don't
need
blush.
Answers.
You're blushing.
I never blush.
You are now.
Am I blushing? Oh,
yes.
God, that's terrible, isn't it? No, we need answers. That's the thing. And
we do it from you. Who's it going to be?
Right, Claire, who's your choice?
It would be David Miliband, but he's
David
not...
Miliband?
Yeah,
oh, okay. That's a bit left field.
Well, no, but he's...
International Rescue to the rescue.
I don't trust his brother. I think what he's done to this country with regards to net zero is wrong. And he is definitely, after saying, I don't want it, now to come out and say he's willing to throw his hat throw his rolling bacon into the ring.
Yes.
God help us.
David Miliband, of course, the only politician who's ever left politics to spend less time with his family. Lots more to talk about in all of this. Stay with us here on Talk.
so down! When you get the offer to be the voice of a sheep...
Yes, you can only dream, really.
Kelly Riley and Cole Hauser! Well, how much of Rip does your husband in real life have about him?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's a man. He's
He's
a dude.
Kirsty and Phil!
Can we talk about one other thing?
We talk about loads of things. It's an interview.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots of messages coming in, and on Twitter Angela says this regarding Ed Miliband, and as a field leader he'd have some brass neck to stand. Again, I'd rather it was Angela Rayner. Andrew says, what happened to country before party? What a bunch of self-centred charlatans. The Labour Party is factional beyond, sorry, fraction, I think he means what's the word I'm looking for?
Fractured.
Fractured, thank you. Fractured beyond repair into basically two parties that are left and hard left, disagree with what most voting Brits want. With the current leader, that seems to be in denial. And Bella has been in touch to say apparently a reservoir is being built in Hampshire. I didn't know that.
There we go.
Well, that's good news because we need it. We need a reservoir, definitely. Leslie says the goal of Starmer to parade himself tomorrow in front of the King in the country is unbelievable. He is deluded and arrogant. Another person says, Peter, when a Prime Minister is booted out, automatic general election may stop the treadmill of Prime Ministers with any party, says Ian Brown, brackets not that one. And Tony in Norfolk says Starmer's not a celebrity, get him out of here, love the show, says Tony in Norfolk. And plenty of other people. Chris in Skipton, for example, says, I can't believe what the previous caller said about the Prime Minister being right-wing when he used to attend communist summer camps in the summer. He didn't attend communist summer camps. Sorry, I'm going to, on a factual point, say that this wasn't the case. There is this sort of conspiracy theory about Starmer being in the Eastern Bloc. He was in the Eastern Bloc. He was actually spent a bit of a summer cleaning up and helping construct a memorial to victims of the Holocaust. So we do need to be factual about that. I will criticise Starmer for many, 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 many things, but he's not a communist, and he doesn't hate God as well. There was a caller who suggested that he hated God, which I'm fairly sure he doesn't, because he doesn't believe God exists. That was a weird call. Chris, another person says, Sebastian was on the last time he was a North London Labour councillor. Did he lose his seat? Well, you decided to stand down.
Yeah, I wasn't standing again.
Yeah, you decided to not do that.
Survived myself a lot of hassle there.
And Don in Chelmsford says, as a political nerd, you will certainly appreciate the quality of most of our MPs is nowhere near what it was. I can't name a big beast now. Have we lost the big beasts? Or do you think we just don't realise? Do we not realise Harriet Harman is actually a big beast?
You know, Hagrid, actually. Hagrid,
wow.
Harriet Harman. I was just saying, because there was a clip of gosh, what's his name, the ex-education minister who's blind, Richard
David Blunkett.
David Blunkett is doing the rounds at the moment. Think of him and John Prescott and Alex Salmond and Charles Kennedy and, you know, lots of John Smith. It's his anniversary of his death today.
Oh, gosh,
and
right,
I think he got the Labour Party elected. He built everything in place, put everything in place in order for Blair to sweep in and get in there. These are big beasts of political life. They served, you know, their country. They were politically, they were political through and through, and they had gravitas. What have we got now?
Do you think we're lacking gravitas, Sebastian?
We are definitely, in some political weight.
There are two things. The first is that the nature of communications has changed. We're all on social media, we're in the 24-hour news cycle. Those things didn't exist in the 90s, and so it was much easier to manage your image and come across as a real heavyweight. The other is, if you're looking at the Labour intake, so many of them are in their first term. Most of them have only been an MP for less than 2 years.
And a lot of them have only been, I mean, Keir Starmer's only been an MP for 10 years.
Yeah.
Wes Streeting's been, there's the picture, I'm sure you've seen the picture of Catherine West.
Yes.
Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer sitting together. So it's a fascinating.
It was in 2015, that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when they all became MPs. So that's an interesting point as well. We didn't talk about radical MPs and what sort of radical approach is needed. So I wonder how radical you think a new Prime Minister coming in would actually be, because there's going to be lots of people saying, well, I need to have a general election. We've had some callers and texters saying that already. There'll be people saying you've no mandate. There'll be people saying nobody voted for this. It's tricky from day one, isn't it, Claire?
Definitely. I would say we wouldn't need a general election right now because it's just everything is just too unstable, not only on a global scale but domestically as well. We've not even discussed John Swinney wanting Scottish independence. We've not even discussed domestic security of energy. We've not even discussed pensions. We've not even discussed the cost of living crisis. We've not even discussed the small boats. We've not even discussed Israel or Gaza or anything like that today, or Iran. Brilliant that we're not discussing all of that at this precise moment in time, but we don't need a general election to destabilise anything else.
There is so much that is happening at the moment. There is obvious interest in the soap opera of Westminster because it does matter, but can a new Prime Minister, whoever that is, if there is one, actually have the sort of bandwidth to say, right, I'm here now, I need to get on with a serious job?
This is it. And look, I get that it's tempting to reach for the eject button when you feel that things aren't going well, but what next? And politics is a long-term game. You've always got to extend the time horizon, and I think too many people aren't doing that right now because somebody else comes in, great, new personality, it's someone who's fresh, then what? What is that package that they stand on? How radical is it really? Where are those ideas? I don't see them being bandied about anywhere. And is it really going to work? And I say that whether this is somebody who comes in from Labour, as is most likely, or we go to a general election and somebody from a different party comes in. I just don't see any answers.
But, I think there might be an appetite, though, in saying all of what I've just said. Voting was up in the local elections.
By 8 points, that's right.
The younger generation are much more engaged now than they have ever been. So, I don't know.
Yeah,
perhaps.
It's fascinating. We will see what happens. King's Speech tomorrow, and I'll be in Claire's chair. I will be identifying as Claire Muldoon in that chair because I'll be on with Julia Hardy-Brewer tomorrow between 11 and 12 dissecting what's in the King's Speech. The big question, of course, is will Keir Starmer actually get to implement the bills that he wants to implement? I mean, that, as I know because I work in the Ministry of Justice, the Lord Chancellor, David Lammy, is the person who will hand the King the speech. Is printed on vellum, and that is in the Lord Chancellor's office right now under lock and key until tomorrow. So, I mean, we've had all this work to get a King's Speech over the line, Sebastian, but actually, is there going to be time to implement it? And also within that, I wonder if you think people are actually holding back a little bit to let the King's Speech happen and then plunge in the knife.
Well, it's such a hurdle, isn't it? And we've seen reporting that the palace has been in touch and said, look, do you really want to go ahead with this? And it's reasonable that they would do that. The neat way to do this, it's not necessarily the best way, but the neat way is for Starmer to lay out a timetable that's a year long, because a parliamentary session can be a year long. You then deliver that agenda and then you move on. But even then, you have a year of essentially a lame duck Prime Minister, so it's not ideal. But this is the real constitutional crunch here, isn't it? That you've got a man who's about to announce his plans for the next 1 or 2 years, yet you get a signal that he might be out the door.
Who writes the King's Speech?
It's the government. They will put it all together. Number 10 will put it together, and it's just... I mean, as we know, as we've seen before, it's just really straightforward. My government will introduce measures to do this, that, the other, but the King has no input to it at all.
So ultimately, all the chitter-chatter from Downing Street since Saturday, surely the Labour Party high echelons could have been coming together to say that for the King's Speech, whoever, we know you're out the door, we know someone else, one of us is moving in. I've just got the Farrow and Ball colour chart with me. Oh, sorry, you weren't meant to see that. Is it likely that they would have sat round, got the constitutional and thrash it out?
In theory, they could have done, but really, it'll be what Starmer wants to be. It'll be his legislative programme. So there'll be no. It's very top down. There'll be very
it's quite
little
disrespectful
consulting
to the
on what
King,
people.
though, giving him something a piece of work like this, only for him to know that he's not going to be there.
Graham's been in touch and says who is doing the King's Speech tomorrow? Is it King Charles or the King of the North, Andy Burnham, who will do it? I mean, he has come down to London. I do think Charles will be the one who gives it. Bob says, listening to Labour MPs that are working to get rid of Keir, you can only hear they are only interested in heading left and taxing and spending even more, which can't deliver growth, although Labour somehow thinks it will, against all economic theory. The right may be enjoying Keir's dilemma, but it can only get worse for the country. The country needs to reduce spending in order to cut taxes and businesses, to allow growth to recover and reduce the interest rate on our large national debt. I mean, Bob has some really interesting points there, and I wonder, I mean, whoever the new leader is, if there is a new leader, will be under a lot of pressure, Sebastian, to go left, won't they?
I mean, if it's somebody from the soft left, it's probably going to happen anyway. Look,
but even if it's someone like Wes Streeting, there are going to be a lot of people say, I'll vote for you if you're more left-wing.
On fiscal policy or on everything?
On everything.
Look, I think the Labour leadership tends to tack left. If you're going to stand in that election, you're going to be speaking to a more left-wing coterie than you otherwise would be if you were speaking to the country. But I think you have to be very pragmatic. There are good ideas on all sides, and you have to be willing to take them. Tacking blindly left on every issue is a very myopic way of governing, and I hope we don't see that done. There has to be a more intelligent way to sift through individual issues.
Is whoever this person is going to be actually put in lots of different directions, Claire, because they're going to say, right, the Greens to the left are in serious difficulty, and also the Reform UK are on the right. They're taking a lot of people away, especially in the Red Wall.
Yes, but it's all very well to hark back to the days of Nye Bevan and Barbara Castle, etc., of the Labour heavyweights who set up the NHS. There doesn't seem to be any innovation now in politics from either the right or the left or the fringes. The only one that seems to be speaking in any political narrative at the moment is Zach Polanski and the Greens. They seem to be hitting every single thing. Minorities, tick. Canvassing in Urdu, tick. Rent controls, tick. They seem to be, and education, they seem to be, pandering almost to the things that are starting to rise up.
They've certainly done very well in the local elections. Just before we leave the debate desk, I'd love to see this clip from Sky News a little bit earlier tonight from Miata Fanbulla, who was a Labour minister who resigned today. This is what she has told Sky News.
Is Andy Burnham your number one candidate as we sit here now?
Well, look, if Andy Burnham was in Parliament, I'd be supporting him. Right. And ultimately, I think we need a process that allows, whether it's Andy, Wes, whoever else, to essentially say what they're going to do for the country.
And if Ed Miliband was to be a sort of caretaker leader until Andy Burnham got here, you'd back that?
No, look, it's not for me to say what the process looks like. I wish I could wave a magic wand and all of this could go away and we're in a settled state on the other side
You're
of it.
hating this, basically.
Yeah, all of us are.
What do you think of that, Claire?
I think she was very honest. Everyone is hating it. I don't think they do take any comfort in slagging off their leader who has helped them get where they want to be, i.e. an MP for Labour. But why didn't they speak out sooner? Why aren't they talking to their constituents? Why didn't they find out beforehand that the word on the street was these local elections weren't going to be voted on local issues, i.e. potholes, etc., but on the bigger issue, because there was this risible, tangible hate for Starmer.
Quick word from Sebastian on this.
She's bang on about the solutions issue, which is the point I mentioned earlier. We want to see what everybody has to offer, because changing your leadership is cosmetic. It's what they will actually do that is important, and it has never been as important as now, where we're in such a mire as a country. We need a clear direction and we need to crack on with it.
The former Labour Minister Bill Rammell will join us in just a second after the news. We'll see what he has to say. He's been going to be critical of Starmer. For the meantime, Claire Muldoon and Sebastian Selleck, political commentators, both thank you for joining me in the studio. Really appreciate that. And just one more message from Margaret in Birmingham, who says Larry made an appearance today. It was on yesterday as well, actually. Thinking, of course, not another one. He was the centre of attention, says Margaret in Birmingham. If only someone would write a book about him. I think that would be a really good idea. Lots to discuss. As I said, Bill Rammell will be with us. We'll make sure we get many, many more views from you, of course, on the show. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can get your text in as well, 87222. Tell me what you think. What should Starmer do? Plenty more of that between now and 10. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening, and thank you so much if you've been with me for the last hour. There are 2 hours ahead, and there's only one story in town, and that is the future of Keir Starmer. So much to discuss. The former Labour Minister, Bill Rammell, will be with me in a second. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. We'll be hearing from Reform UK this hour as well. So much to discuss about his future, about what comes next, about a leadership contest, and, you know, how long can he hang on? The King's speech is tomorrow as well. I'll be in studio with Julie Hartley-Brewer during her programme between 10 and 1, talking about that from 11. So big dramatic developments. And when will the Prime Minister go, or who will actually move against him? Because Wes Streeting is talking to him tomorrow. Bit of a showdown there. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell on Twitter. You can also follow me on Instagram at CardwellPeter, confusingly. You can send me a WhatsApp text message. You can send me a WhatsApp voice message. Do send those through. Nick had a great one in the last hour, as well as did a couple other people as well. We'll get as many of those on as we can. And of course, you can give me a ring. 0344 499 1000, the main number you need. So much to discuss in the next couple of hours here on Talk. Well, lots of people reacting to this. We know that over 100 backbenchers are in support of Keir Starmer. We think there are now 87 MPs who've gone on the record saying he should go, or at least set out a timetable for going. Miata Fahnbulleh was a government minister until earlier today. She has resigned. This is what she told Sky News a bit earlier this evening.
Is Andy Burnham your number one candidate as we sit here now?
Well, look, if Andy Burnham was in Parliament, I'd be supporting him.
Right.
And ultimately, I think we need a process that allows, whether it's Andy, Wes, whoever else, to essentially say what they're going to do for the country.
And if Ed Miliband was to be a sort of caretaker leader until Andy Burnham got here, you'd back that?
No, look, it's not for me to say what the process looks like. I wish I could wave a magic wand and all of this could go away and we're in a settled state on the other side
You're
of it.
hating this, basically.
Yeah, all of us are.
Lots of people getting in touch on all of this. We'll come to more of your calls, text, tweets, voice notes and all the rest of it in just a second. But I want to hear what Darren Jones had to say, the most loyal of Starmer loyalists. He is the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, his sort of representative on earth. This is what he's been saying to Sky News today.
I'm not going to get ahead of any decision that the Prime Minister may or may not take. He was very clear yesterday that he will not be walking away, as some of my colleagues have asked him to do. I've observed we've got over 400 Labour MPs in the House of Commons. I don't belittle the, I think now 70 who have raised concerns publicly. All I would say is that the vast majority of us are focused on using the time we have in government to be able to deliver the types of change for people across the country that we're also passionate about delivering, but that we have to work together then as a party in this new political era of five-party politics, of the rise of populist parties in our country, to be able to set the course for winning that next election. And as I say, I believe we can win that election, because I think our Labour values of equality, of opportunity, of solidarity, of bringing the country together and rising to the challenges of the future are the values that will win at the ballot box in 2029.
A Labour value is solidarity. I do wonder whether the splits in the Labour Party show solidarity at the moment. He also talked there, Darren Jones, about how he believed Labour can win the next election. I'd be very interested in the perspective of Bill Rammell, who's a former Labour minister. Bill joins us now. You're very welcome to the programme. Good evening.
Good to see you, Peter.
Can Keir Starmer survive?
I regretfully don't think he can. I mean, look, Keir is a decent public servant, and I think particularly on the international stage he's been an effective Prime Minister. But I think we've reached a tipping point. The local elections were awful historically for the Labour Party. In a real sense, he's not cutting through with the public. He doesn't impose his written authority on government, and that has implications for policy, but also communications. And he is sadly a very wooden communicator. And when I talk about a tipping point, we've now got virtually 90 Labour MPs calling for him to go. That's 1 in 4 of non-government ministers. We've got about 10 ministers or PPSs resigning. allegedly, and it's not being repudiated, senior cabinet ministers telling Keir he's got to set out a timetable for departure.
And the Times reporting that Ed Miliband could run against him is the latest now from Stephen Swinford, very respected political editor of the Times.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't be my preference. I mean, firstly, there needs to be a timetable for a change. I think that's most likely to happen by one candidate declaring with 81 Labour MPs in support, or Keir realising that the game is up and setting out a timetable for his departure. If it does come to a change, my view is that Wes Streeting is by far the most effective potential Prime Minister. He's a moderniser, he's making real change in the health service, and he's head and shoulders above anyone within the government as an effective communicator. He cuts through with people, he talks human, and he's got real communicating ability. And sadly, I think that's what's been lacking from Keir.
Very interesting one to say that you're thinking Wes Streeting would be the right person. I mean, there are a lot of people on the left of the Labour Party who really want to stop him and don't think that he should be, as a sort of very Blairite person, that he should be the leader. He's also got quite a number of links to Peter Mandelson at various points. Surely that will be problematic for him at the very least.
Well, I don't think he's a classic Blairite. We're in a new political age. The links with Mandelson, he published all his emails and there was nothing damning within that. But what he does is really communicate effectively. And if you look at the local elections last week in his own backyard, I mean, virtually in contrast to everywhere else in the country, his Labour Party in his local authority was winning comfortably. And I think we've got, this Labour government has achieved a lot, but it hasn't communicated it effectively. And I think with someone at the helm who can speak human, who can communicate effectively, we could seek to move forward.
There are some who wonder, he's undoubtedly a very good communicator. I have interviewed him on a number of occasions, and I agree with you that he is Labour's best communicator. Is there substance there in terms of what he's actually done? Because so many of my viewers and listeners say, look, we're being told time and time again that waiting lists are going down, but it's often cancelled operations, it's things that are moved, there are appointments that are moved, there's a bit of double counting involved. There's a lot of suspicion of his record at the health service in that regard. He's put more money into the health service, but still there are massive inefficiencies there. I'm not saying that any person could turn around the NHS simply in 2 years, but I just wonder whether the substance matches the style.
I think it does. I mean, there was a mountain to climb within the National Health Service that this government inherited from the Conservatives. And although I don't think Wes is a classic Blairite, he is doing something that the last Labour government did, of working where it's necessary with the private sector to plug capacity gaps within the health service and using that to drive waiting lists down. And, the last Labour government decreased waiting lists from 2 years to 18 weeks. Wes is moving in that direction, and I think he is a serious reformer. He recognises the need to change the way the public sector works, and that, allied with real communication skills, could take us forward. Having said that, we're not at that stage yet. There isn't a decision for a change of leader.
But also within that bill, I do wonder whether a leader who has a majority of just 528 in his Ilford North constituency, just 1.2%, whether that person surely at the next election, Reform UK, the Greens, the sort of pro-Gaza faction that nearly beat him the last time, throw every single thing at that constituency. And then you're in a situation where you could, in theory, unseat a Prime Minister. I'm just thinking about all the different aspects of this. He has got a very small majority.
He has, and that's been one of the worries in my mind. Having said that, if local elections are an indicator of the likely direction at the next general election, he got a fantastic result for Labour in his own patch last week. And I think it suggests that, Wes is not only good at communicating, not only good at reforming within government, but he's an inveterate campaigner on the streets, and he's been doing that since that general election to build back and bolster support. And votes do speak, And the result in his local patch was really impressive last week, against a trend that was against the Labour Party nationally.
It's interesting as well with the Labour MP signing this letter of support for Keir Starmer. We're speaking to Aubrey Allegretti from The Times a little bit later on in the programme. He's our chief political correspondent, and he has put out on his Twitter that 2 Labour MPs have been in touch with him to say they didn't actually agree to sign the Loyalist statement. I mean, that's not exactly a ringing endorsement of the political operation and the organisational aspect of the support for Keir Starmer. Do you think, for example, that he should have gone to meet apprentices today?
Well, I think Keir is trying to get on with the job of being Prime Minister. But, you know, I think Keir needs to recognise that this is a tipping point. I can't recall of any Prime Minister who has virtually 100 of his own MPs calling for him to go, who sees 10 resignations for his government, senior cabinet ministers, and it hasn't been repudiated, calling on him to set out a timetable to go. Those are not the circumstances in which you can go on. And I do genuinely feel sympathy for Keir. I think he is a decent man with decent instincts. He wants to do the right thing, but to do that, you need authority to drive your will through government. And sadly, I don't think Keir has got that now.
Has he ever had the authority? Because lots of people will look back at the last 2 years thinking, what has he actually achieved? And you're talking about the communications aspect, maybe it's the communications of that. But when you ask, as I often have, serving Labour ministers, what has this government achieved? They often start with breakfast clubs. And there's nothing wrong with breakfast clubs, and I'm very happy that children are being fed. But at the same time, if that's the greatest achievement they can talk about, I do wonder about the communication and the messaging at the heart of it. And that comes from the top as well, doesn't it, Bill?
Yeah, and I think communications has been a real deficit for this government. I think there is a positive agenda that you can make, you know, improved workers' rights, which are popular in the country, improved renters' rights, reducing waiting lists, supporting people with the cost of living, wages for the first time in a generation, increasing more than prices. That ought to be and should be built into, if you like, a political picture of the change that is happening. I think, sadly, the government, and particularly the Prime Minister, has been unable to do that.
Do you think people are waiting for the King's speech to be over before they make their move?
I honestly don't know. I think at some stage in the next few days, week at the most, one candidate will go over the top with 81 backers that will trigger a leadership contest. And I think for both the party, the government, and most importantly, the country, if that change is going to take place, it needs to happen quickly, because we can't go on with this kind of instability and crisis at the heart of government.
Bill, thank you for joining us this evening. Really interesting to talk to you. Superb analysis there. Agreed with a lot of it. Bill Rammell there, former Labour Minister. What do you think of what he said there? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Get a couple of callers on, in fact, probably more than a couple, after the break. So get your call in and we'll make sure we speak to as many people as possible. Lots of texters, tweeters. We'll make sure you have your say in just a few minutes. So stay with us here on Talk.
get the offer to be the voice of a sheep?
Yes, you can only dream, really.
Kelly Riley and Cole Hauser. Well, how much of Rip does your husband in real life have about him?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's a man. He's
Kirsty and Phil.
Can we talk about one other thing?
We can talk about loads of things. It's an interview.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks everybody who's been in touch. Let's go to the phones now. Ken in Cardiganshire has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Ken, what do you think about this? What's happening, and what do you make of Starmer's future?
Well, Starmer's future, I hope. I don't know what to make of it now. Do you know, I think if Miliband goes for it, I'm leaving the country.
Right.
To start, and that's going to be the end of the nation. But one thing that confuses me, these breakfast clubs, are parents incapable of feeding their own children these days?
Well, I think it's a very good point, because breakfast cereal isn't, I mean, it's not cheap, but it's not the most expensive of foods, and having a couple of Weetabix and a bit of milk seems to me a pretty reasonable thing to ask parents to do. I'm not a parent. My parents always give me breakfast before they went to work, if I wanted it, or I could, when I got to sort of 6 or 7, I could make it myself. I do slightly wonder about the idea of breakfast clubs. I think it's perhaps to give people more flexible working so they can leave for work earlier as well, Ken.
But they're all working from home, aren't they?
Well, that's it as well. I think there are a lot of people as well who are very happy for the free childcare.
Well, I'm sure they are, yeah. But the other thing, this Kevin that was on earlier on, he's saying that Labour have made it now. They've said that they've increased the wages for people exponentially these days.
They've certainly put the minimum wage up, but that's an easy thing for government to do because they don't have to pay it.
Yeah, they have. They've said it's easy to say that, but that's at the expense of 1 in 4 people in employment, isn't it? 1 in 4 have been expelled from the employment register, so that these people can actually be paid well.
Well, it's really interesting you mentioned that, actually, because I was reading yesterday about a business where people's hours have been cut because they just don't have the money. And I mean, I was speaking to a business owner recently, actually not a business, a charity, who was saying that they are losing people specifically from their headcount, from their number of employees, because of the national insurance increases. So it doesn't always work out exactly how the government wants it to work out.
Well, this is it. But the thing I want to say, really, I don't think Starmer's going to go until Herr Hermer tells him to go, because I think they're both lawyers, both have read the contracts, and until Herr Hermer tells him to go, he's not going to go.
Why do you call him Herr Hermer? Why do you call him that?
Well, I just feel he's the patriarch, really. I think he's the one in charge, wearing the jackboots.
Okay, and I don't want to go into that because I don't think I don't think that's a fair thing to say, Ken. Really he's Jewish as well. I mean, I think we need to be really careful around that kind of imagery.
You're right. I'd forgotten that. I do apologise.
That's okay. That's fine. But you certainly see Lord Hermer as a dominating figure and someone who has perhaps too much influence on Keir Starmer.
Well, I really do. I do think he's the one in charge, and I think they correspond every day, and he'll be the one to tell him when to go or not. But do you not think that Rayner coming into this equation too is a bit much when if she's still got charges outstanding.
Well, it'll be fascinating to see what happens, Ken, and see, you know, whether she backs Andy Burnham. But Ken and Cardigan, sure, listen, thank you very much indeed. And I do want to say to Lord Hermer that we obviously, you know, Ken did apologise there, and I picked him up on what he said there, and I'm totally familiar with Lord Hermer's Jewish heritage. I disagree with him on many, many political things, but I won't criticise him on anything like that. And I do want to apologise on behalf of the station to Lord Hermer for that language being used, although Ken, in fairness, did apologise too. I hope that puts an end to the matter. Nigel is on air now. He is in London, and he's given me a ring. Nigel, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Well, good evening, Peter. Thank you for having me on the show. I wanted to say that how embarrassing it is for Andy Burnham to come to London. It's like a scene from Oliver, when it's to sing for his supper. You know, is any MP going to give up their seat who earns £98,000 a year to try and shoehorn Andy Burnham in? They must be out of their minds to even think
Nigel, I find the mystique around Andy Burnham quite weird. He lost the Labour leadership twice. He is Mayor of Greater Manchester. Okay, fine. Lots of people in Manchester say he's done a good job. Lots of people in Manchester say he's done a bad job. If Andy Burnham's the answer, I think we need to think about the question quite a lot, because there's exactly the same, well, slightly different things are going to be said. People are going to say he's all style and no substance, he's all about himself, he's all about communication, he's all about doing interviews but not actually doing things. All the criticisms of Andy Burnham as Health Secretary back in the day will just come back again, I think, Nigel.
I think you're right. The other thing also about the other possible candidates is that Wes Streeting has such a minuscule majority in his seat in East London as well.
Yeah, 528, that's 1.2% majority. It's very small.
Very, very small. And I don't know if you saw that, well, you must have seen the story in The Sun about Angela Rayner's team have been trying to contact HMRC or been in contact with HMRC.
Yeah, to try to speed things up. I did read about that, yeah.
Yeah. I know what I would do if I was Angela Rayner. I would simply say to HMRC, I'm going to pay you a sum of money which you think I may or may not owe you. And then, of course, if it turns out an inquiry says I don't owe you, then you can refund me the money. Instead of these backwards and forwards emails and correspondence with her team, I think that would be the way forward. I think that perhaps the man who's the dark force in all of this is going to be Ed Miliband.
Yeah, well, he is. The Times is reporting, Stephen Swinford, who is the political editor of the Times, saying that Ed Miliband is now thinking of running.
Well, you know, this is. I think financially we're in a terrible, terrible state. If he gets in, my gosh, they want to ban tumble drugs. What else are they going to ban selling soon?
Bacon sandwiches, Nigel. They will be off the menu.
Oh yeah.
The banned bacon sandwiches.
Monica, couldn't it? The bacon sandwich man of North London.
And that was a bacon sandwich wielding assassin. Nigel, thanks for your call. Davy is in Edinburgh. Davy, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter.
Hi there.
I'm hearing about all these 80 odd MPs that are, they can't trust Starmer anymore. They don't want to work under him. Why not some of these people that they say it's principle for the country, what's good of the country? Why not some of these people resign their seats, stand as an independent and trigger by-election?
I mean,
let's soon the country know.
That would take a level of bravery I'm not sure many of them have, Davy.
Well, exactly, and vice versa. The people that are supporting Starmer, well, you do the same. And then if the electorate will soon let you know.
What about general election? Do you think we should have one of those, Davy?
Pardon?
What about a general election? Should we have one of those?
Well, I think you should have any time, and that goes with the Tories. When you're changing leaders, I think you should.
Okay.
But
what do you make of the result up in Scotland there to the Scottish Parliament, Davy?
Well, it's completely nuts up here. We've now got a Green MSP in Edinburgh, Hugh Maninavan or whatever it is. She's here studying for a PhD. She ain't got a work visa.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. She's got to apply for another one.
She's a foreign national.
It's very, very weird. Davey, listen, thanks for your comments. I really appreciate those. Let me read a couple of texts here. Dan in Kent says, you can't get growth by feeding a socialist society. It's dead money passed around. It's basic economics that the only way to produce growth is to produce a product and sell it on a global scale. How on earth are we still arguing socialism versus capitalism in the early part of the 21st century? It's beyond me. I disagree with Farage and left-right politics being dead, because left-right politics is politics. It's the centre ground of politics that has shifted a disproportionate way to the left, and the electorate needs to wake up and stop being so stupid, says Dan in Kent. Let me go to Bethany, who says, Beth here in Norfolk. Hi, Beth. I must be honest, as I'm so confused why Starmer is so delusional. Why can he not see we don't want him? He's making the UK worse. He's damaging everything. He couldn't get himself out of a wet paper bag. I honestly cannot wrap my head around how his head is working. What's the point of hanging on? He's done nothing good. Rape gangs, nothing. The boats, nothing. And the list goes on. Can anyone else work this out? Beth, I think he must get it in his heart of hearts. He will say that he doesn't get it. He'll say, as he did at Cabinet today, that he wants to fight on and, you know, he's got this mandate and all the rest of it. Really, he knows it. And usually when people are in that odd position, they delude themselves. Everybody knows it, but nobody says it. Nobody says the Emperor has no clothes. And nobody wants to leave Downing Street. No one leaves Downing Street voluntarily. Harold Wilson did, but he had Parkinson's. He played it as if it was voluntary, but actually he had a very, very serious health condition. So Beth, I think your point is a really good one. I think it makes a lot of sense. He is delusional, but I think in his heart of hearts, he must know the game is up. Don in Chelmsford says, in my experience, there's a big difference between being a manager and being a leader. The best leaders inspire, provide direction, and get people to follow them. Starmer has no leadership qualities. Sam in Lancashire says, we have 7 Prime Ministers collecting £150,000 each in free security for life, but kicking off of the disabled and pensioners. Nice, says Sam. Well, not all of them do take that allowance. They all take their pension, but there's an allowance for a Prime Ministerial office, so not all of them take that, Sam. We did talk about that last week, I think. Gary in Glasgow says, thanks to Labour, if you're an Islamist, anti-Semite, Iran supporter, BLM, revolutionary or LGBT activist, you get to march freely. But if you're a UK citizen peacefully protesting mass immigration, they'll do everything to shut you down. This is a reality of millions of Brits see every day. The sooner Labour are out, the better. It'll be very interesting to see what happens at the Unite the UK march, which is happening later this month. Amanda says, good evening, Peter. What a complete farce we've seen today. Hopefully, after the King's speech tomorrow, things will be more ordered. We shall see. Could just be the start. And Alison in County Antrim says, great content tonight as per the norm, Peter. I like your shirt, by the way, for tonight. Peter, really smart for such important things that are being discussed right now. I reckon Larry could put in a good run at being Prime Minister of this country. Seriously, though, I wonder who will replace Keir Starmer. Oh, all the big questions, not sure. I certainly hope it's not Angela Rayner. Best regards from Alison in County Antrim. Alison, thank you very much indeed for that. I mean, I just wear the shirts that are in the wardrobe. I think I said to Jeremy Kyle one time, I certainly said to David Bill that I have 7 blue ones, 7 pink ones and 7 white ones, which I think is just a bit weird, but then, as you know, I'm nothing if not a tiny bit eccentric. Lots to discuss. The Reform UK advisor Vanessa Freck will be with us next for her view on what Starmer does next. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots to discuss this evening. Another texter says more than 80 of Starmer's colleagues don't want to work with him anymore. Lammy says nobody has support to stand for the leadership. So in theory, the party can't govern then, so they have to have a general election. The country can't be in limbo like this. Alex in Hertfordshire says, will the King reluctantly sign off on Keir's silly nonsense agenda just in the nick of time before Keir leaves and the next leader shrugs and says they can't change it, but the agenda goes ahead, deliberate managed decline? That's what a lot of people are thinking and can instinctively feel. Well, certainly the bills and the legislative agenda are set out in the King's speech, so it would be very difficult to change that dramatically. Although, new Prime Minister, be very, very interesting to see what happens and what they impose as their will. Lots of points coming in. Jackie as well says to carry on the charade that is this Labour government that is in power is what's destabilising the country by its very nature, by itself, is what Jackie is saying. I want to speak to the Reform UK advisor, Vanessa Freck MBE, who's with us now. Vanessa, great to have you on the programme. What is your thinking about Keir Starmer?
Well, look, I think last Thursday, I think the country spoke about.
Oh, it's just not a great line with Vanessa. We'll see if we can get her back on a better line in just a second. But we'll talk to Vanessa Freck. She's a very experienced prison governor, actually, who's been advising Reform UK on all sorts of things to do with prisons policy. But she's a big and strong political instincts as well, as does Rob from Burnley, who says, I think the best these Labour MPs can hope for is Starmer agreeing a timeline for departure, for example, a conference in the autumn. The danger is Starmer seizing the opportunity to get bills passed in the next 4 months, plus the lack of scrutiny over the summer recess. MPs may help pass those bills out of respect, whereas if he digs his heels in, they're more likely to revolt. Well, that's a very interesting point from Rob and Burnley there. And keep your points coming in. Really, really interesting. I'll speak to more people on the phone as the hour goes on, as well as the programme. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We spoke to Bill Rammell, of course, the former Labour minister, earlier on. He thinks that Keir Starmer's position is untenable. It'll be very interesting to hear from Kevin Schofield a bit later on in the programme as well. He is the HuffPost political editor, and we'll see what he has to say. Anna has been in touch with a voice note as well. This is what she has to say.
I don't think it matters who the Labour leader is. I don't think it matters what happens, because I think there's an exhaustion out here. There's an anger and a vitriol and a rage building up. And I think there's a course of events set in that either the government are aware of or are completely blind of. But the majority out here just absolutely had enough. You know, the decent people of Britain and Ireland we've stuck it, Peter, for 40 years, and successive governments have trodden all over us and ignored our votes. And I think we're heading for conflict, mate, and I'm so sad.
Anna, great point there, particularly on your voice being ignored. A number of people in touch this evening about all sorts of issues, not least the fact that a smaller proportion than in many years voted for this Labour government. The way the system is, it means that 411 Labour MPs were elected on about a third of those who turned out to vote, which is about 20% of people. Look, that's democracy, that's our system, that's how it works. And there have been many, many other governments that haven't had more than 50% of the people present and voting actually voting them into office. So a number of different points there. Really interesting as well with the local elections, because has Keir Starmer actually registered that? Has he registered that he's lost 1,500 Labour councillors? Vanessa Freck is back on the phone. We had some problems with the connection there, but Vanessa, who's a Reform UK advisor, with us now. Vanessa, what do you make of Keir Starmer's position?
Well, I think the country made it absolutely quite clear last Thursday what they think of Keir Starmer. You know, I think he's an absolute narcissist, someone with an excessive, unhealthy preoccupation with themselves, characterised by a grandiose sense of self-importance, a desperate need for admiration, and a profound lack of empathy for others. You know, Peter, why doesn't he go? I have no idea why he doesn't go.
It's interesting because it's so clear, isn't it, that his support is ebbing away. We have over 100 MPs who have apparently been in support of him, but journalists saying this evening that not all of those MPs actually consented to be on that loyalty list as well. Do you think he knows it's over?
I think he's to quote a Doctor Who emphasis, is a Klingon. He's clinging on to dear hope. At the end of the day, Peter, he's doing everybody else a favour by clinging on, because the man is useless, absolutely useless. He started off with taking money off pensioners, and it's just gone downhill since then. So, I fail to see what good he is going to do by staying on. His speech was just, whoever wrote that speech needs sacking. It was intolerable by any stretch of the
surely as someone advising Reform UK, keeping Starmer in place is one of the many aspects that is making Reform UK so popular. I mean, they took nearly as many councillors on Thursday as Starmer's party lost.
Absolutely. The man is making Reform look absolutely amazing. But that doesn't take away from what he's doing to our country. And, it doesn't matter about how good Reform looks, because Reform will look good whatever or whoever is in power. But he's just a Klingon to me.
What do you think how do you think the public will react if he does go and then you get another Labour Prime Minister chosen by Labour members who may be even more left-wing, for example? Maybe they could bring back some votes from the Green Party, or maybe someone who's more right-wing than Keir Starmer, who's someone like Wes Streeting. I mean, what are your thoughts about who comes next and who you would like to come next? And I'm sure you would like Nigel Farage to be Prime Minister of this country, but realistically, for the next at least 2 to 3 years, it's going to be a Labour MP who's in that position.
Look, I don't really care who comes next. I just want somebody to run our country with a bit of oomph. And that is certainly what Keir Starmer is missing, is a bit of oomph. He has no charisma. His speeches are weak. He is weak, and his cabinet is weak for standing by him.
What do you think the next Prime Minister's first priority should be? Criminal justice is your big area. What should be the number one priority, Vanessa?
For me, it's got to be stop these illegals coming over in these boats. That is the number one priority, because they are draining our society, without a doubt.
Okay, Vanessa, thank you very much. That's Vanessa Freck, who's Vanessa Freck MBE, former President Governor, who is a Reform UK advisor. Interesting to hear her perspective on all of that. We'll hear yours in just a second. Let me just read a few messages first, and then we'll go to calls. Peter says Starmer is too arrogant to resign. Tommy says, good evening, Peter. Good evening, Tommy. It doesn't matter who we get. They are not going to solve any of the problems that the great British public want to be solved. We want a government that can change things, not a government that has to get approval from civil servants to do anything. We want a government who are in charge, not civil servants. We want an end to all the net zero nonsense and become self-sufficient and oil from the North Sea. We want a government who can put a stop to immigration. We want a government who can reduce energy and petrol prices. We now have a bigger population than France, and we are half the size, says Tommy in Ayrshire. Very interesting to hear from you there. Leslie says, have you seen Burnham's CV when he was Health Secretary? They think he is PM material. Leslie, I think you've identified a really good point there, because Burnham, I mean, when Burnham is the answer, is he really this amazing person? Look, I think he did some good stuff with Hillsborough. He hasn't been a terrible mayor of Manchester, although maybe you're sitting in Manchester and you want to give me a ring in Greater Manchester and tell me I'm wrong on that. But if Andy Burnham, someone who's lost the leadership of the Labour Party twice, who was a not particularly exciting or brilliant health secretary, if he's the answer, if he's going to be the next Prime Minister or soon to be Prime Minister of this country, I think Labour's going to have many, many problems. I think there is a mystique that comes across people, especially people who are maybe a little bit out of the game, if they come back. I saw this happen with David Miliband previously. I've seen it happen with Boris Johnson. It's very interesting to see how we're in a situation where Andy Burnham is seen as the answer. I'm not sure he is. I'd be very interested to see what you would think of Prime Minister Burnham. Simon says, long live Sir Keir and the resultant Reform government. Phil says, Starmer is like a trapped animal, and you know how dangerous they can be, worried about what damage he can do before he goes. And Joanna says, I'm not eccentric but unique, and a pleasure to listen to. Joanna, I really appreciate your message. You better be careful about reading out too many of those. We'll go to the phones in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk.
the offer to be the voice of a sheep?
Yes, you can only dream, really.
Kelly Riley and Cole Hauser. How much of Rip does your husband in real life have about him?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's mad.
He's Kirsty and Phil.
Can we talk about one other thing?
We can talk about loads of things. It's an interview.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Jason has been in touch with the Lake District. He says, remember Starmer claimed they were the most prepared party for government in history and every single department policy was fully costed. Another blatant lie, just like the Country First Party second, a government of service. All a load of nonsense. Well, thank you, Jason, for that. Let's go to the phones. And Mandy is in Felixstowe. She's giving me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Mandy, what do you think? Can Starmer stay on?
No. He has ruined this country. And so also has West Streeting.
So you don't think West Streeting should be the successor then?
No, I was in hospital, and the hassles I had in hospital before Christmas and leading up to February was diabolical. I've gone downhill so far to where the NHS is now. But as for Starmer, he's got to go. We're in debt God knows how long. They're all for illegal immigrants. I don't know where we go from here. I'm at the end of my tether now. I can't take anymore, nor can a lot of people in this country. He needs to read the room, Starmer. We don't want him.
But if he goes, who comes next, Mandy? You've made it clear you don't want it to be Wes Streeting, but who would you favour, or who do you think would do a better job than Starmer?
Unfortunately, there's none of them.
Okay.
None of them have done a business or anything like that.
So you don't want any. You can't think of a single person, a single Labour MP who'd be happy to be Prime Minister. I mean, we're looking at probably another 3 years of Labour government.
Oh God, no! Please don't wish that on us.
It's the way things are, Mandy. From your own experience in the health service, you just don't see an improvement there?
No, there's no improvement in the NHS. I can tell you that one for now, for nothing.
Okay.
You know. And there was something else I was going to say, and it's slipped my mind. Yeah, he's well thought of on the world stage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, come on. Who are they trying to kid? International law?
Well, listen, I think there's a lot to... He certainly likes being an international statesman. Mandy, thanks for your thoughts on that. Let's go to Paula in London. Paula, what's your view this evening? You're very welcome to the programme.
Hi there, Pete.
Hi there.
Good afternoon. Evening, sorry. Can I make a few points quickly?
Take your time. There's no rush, Paula.
First of all, I think what we've got here, we've got a wild beast, and that will be Starmer, and they're all circling around the wild beast. They all want a piece of the pie. And when I talk about the piece of the pie, they want their moment of glory, not for the country. When any of them reference what they want, what their vision is for Britain, it's their vision. It's not the people's vision, because the people are the ones who voted them in. But I've never heard them use the reference the people's vision of what. So
it's a very good point, Paula, and it comes back to what Jason said. He texted me from the Lake District to say they were the most prepared party for government in history. Every policy was costed, and it was going to be Country First, Party second. Do you feel you've received that from this Labour government over the past 2 years?
Well, I have lived overseas and I've come back, and I can see a big difference in the north, because I'm originally from the north of England. I have family in Manchester, and so I just didn't see any changes. I see a lot of people feeling despondent. Now and that includes from the Tory period as well. There's a lot of despondency in the north, so I can come back in and see that. What I wanted to also say is that these politicians are totally out for themselves, because don't forget, at the end of the day, just like the former Conservative lady who was the Prime Minister, I can't remember her name. She was
Theresa May, Liz Truss.
Yeah, no, Truss. That's it. Yeah, they will get a nice send off when they leave. So any of them who are circling around to get that top position, they know what's in it for them. They know they're going to get, if they don't last 5 minutes, a year or whatever, they know they'll still come out of it shiny and clean, and they'll be living the good life. And
it's interesting you mentioned, Paula, about living abroad, because Gillian Italy's been in touch and says, my husband and I moved to Italy 10 years ago, not for Brexit, but we loved the lifestyle. Thank goodness we did. We were both pensioners and couldn't live in Britain without going on to PIP or whatever. We have a wonderful life that we could only dream of. Granted, we moved before Brexit, but we have a lovely lifestyle, and it wouldn't happen in Britain. We can pay all our bills, even in our 70s. We don't worry about finances, just as the British passport holder gets rid of this nutter, Gillian Italy, and not coming back. It's interesting your perspective having come back, Paula. I wonder about the north as well. I mean, you talk about the north of England. What do people say to you about, I know what they say to me, I wonder what they say to you about Andy Burnham and whether they think he'd be any better than Keir Starmer?
Right. So I used to work at Media City in Salford, and I used to talk to the security. I talked to everybody. And I used to talk to the security, and there was a lot of them wanting the best for their children. These guys are not getting paid much, but they wanted the best for their children, and they couldn't see it happening. That's one area. And the other area is I've got a relative who's a cab driver, and they've taken the training, the knowledge, which you can do in Manchester. Now, they've got a problem right now, which Andy Burnham is saying he's going to rectify, he's going to fix. And what's happening is, and maybe someone else from Manchester can call in and verify this, but what's happening is we've got cab drivers not from the city coming up from other parts of the UK who are now imposing themselves and taking those jobs off the Mancunians, so the people who live in Manchester who are cab drivers.
Okay.
So they're coming up I wouldn't say illegally because they're legal, but they're coming up from other areas of
well, there are clearly many issues there. I just wonder, do you think Andy Burnham would be a better Prime Minister than Keir Starmer?
Personally, I think we're doomed either way. But if they had to pick the worst out of the worst, it would be between Andy Burnham and West Streeting. And I'm just talking desperate measures here.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's desperate measures. But I will say quickly, they're after that golden ticket to get into number 10. And if they don't last and they can't do the job, they still come out of it smelling of roses with a nice handshake, a position in the House of Lords, and a nice lifetime payment and security.
Listen, thanks for your thoughts, Paula. I really appreciate that. That's Paula there in London. Thanks to everybody who's been in touch as well, including Phil, who says we're nearly bankrupt as a country, but we still continue to pay for foreigners. If we stop being the world's biggest benefit bank and concentrate on our people, that would start sorting things out. Debbie says there isn't any improvement in the NHS. Ask the staff. Oh, we don't need to because they're always on strike. How can they possibly say it's better? The last 14 years haven't had continuous NHS strikes. It's certainly a big problem in the NHS. Another person says, I work in the job centre and a homeless man was ranting to me yesterday about how Farage is our only help. That's even with the benefit cuts. He just wanted a roof over his head and not to be given to migrants instead. Another person says, I think it says it all when with a major government they can't pick one person to to take over from Starmer. It shows that none of them are up to the job and that we are being governed by idiots. Well, Phil, I think there'd be quite a few people who would want the job. It's a big question of who would be qualified for it and who could get the support as well. Mary in Cumbria has been in touch and says, I am elderly, disabled, and like a lot of people dread the winter. We eat or heat. Starmer has their priorities all wrong when he's giving taxpayers' money to those with illegal multiple marriages. Thank you for always being so fair, says Mary. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that, and I wish you well. Let's speak to Andrea in Essex, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. You've loads of opportunity in this show between now and 10 o'clock to get your voice on the air, so do ring that number. Andrea has. Let's see what she thinks. Good evening, Andrea.
Hi there, Peter.
What do you think?
Oh dear, what a mess. Stop the world and let me get off.
I think a lot of people feel that way. I mean, we're here again. Do you know what? I saw a journalist I don't often see who is from Northern Ireland. I used to work with her at UTV back in the day. She was over in London, and I just said to her earlier, I was in Westminster, I said, we can't stop. We can't keep meeting like this. You know, every time there's a massive political crisis, she's over from Northern Ireland doing her reports on the Green in Westminster, seeing what is happening. And for the country at large, there are just so many people who are totally exasperated with this situation. Sounds as if you might be one of them, Andrea.
Oh, I certainly am. I mean, I think what worries me, Peter, is that Labour seem to be making noises that they needed to move further and faster, and that's why they got slaughtered at the elections. They didn't. They got slaughtered because exactly what your previous callers have said. They were doing what they wanted, not what we wanted. That's why they got slaughtered. Now, what worries me is that if Starmer goes, they'll think, phew, everything's okay now. And it won't be. Because
this is what I think. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Andrea, but this is what I think about, you know, someone shiny and new like Wes Streeting, someone who is outside the cabinet now like Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband. I mean, if Ed Miliband's the answer, we may as well just all go home. Or Andy Burnham. I mean, what have they got? What is the X factor they possess that is suddenly going to make it all right?
Well, they need to start listening to us, don't they? But they won't. We all know they won't. I didn't want the two-child benefit cap to be lifted. I didn't want breakfast clubs to go ahead. I didn't want the farmers' tax to be pushed through. I didn't want the workers' rights in its current form.
But they won a majority for that manifesto, Andrea. I agree with you in most of those issues, but we were in the minority of people who voted. We were not quite the majority, but certainly a number of people who voted for a strong majority that came through in Parliament. They do have a mandate for what they're doing, even if we don't like it, Andrea.
I know. But I just think that, I mean, like Wes Streeting, I think he's probably a decent guy, but a small bit of sick came up when I heard him make a comment on the radio a few weeks ago. He was shouting about Angela Rayner should be back, we need Angela Rayner back, you know, when it all happened with her tax. And when asked why, he said because she's got experience in care. And I thought, oh my dear Lord, is that why we need her back? Go to your local care home. Yeah. Go and follow a couple of carers round on a round for the day and see it for yourself.
We do need people from all walks of life to be politicians, though. It doesn't necessarily make them good politicians.
But not because she's got counsel. I thought that was years ago. Go and see it now. Go to the end of your road and find some carers and see what life is like for people who are flying around in their cars trying to do too many appointments in a day. You know, go and see for yourself. We don't need Angela Rayner back for that. Get out there and do it yourself. Yeah. And also, last point, Peter, on workers' rights. I had my hair done a couple of weeks ago. Small salon owned by two women. They've been in business for about 12 years, 13 years. Great little business that they've built. Mm-hmm. They told me that the first time in 12, 13 years they haven't had trainees is because of the workers' rights bill. Yeah. The first time in over a decade. Yeah. Because they said, with the greatest respect, they're not worth the money that we've got to pay them. They become pretty clueless, you know, and you wouldn't expect them to.
You're taking a massive risk if you bring in a trainee, and it should be a low-risk thing to do. I know exactly what you're talking about. And it is these day-to-day stories that you and I have encountered. I've seen it in places like hair salons, in a cafe, taking on waitresses and waiters. It's those little stories. It's the one and two. It's those two women who run that, deciding we're not going to do one person, and it all adds up, Andrea, doesn't it?
They said they normally take two each year, and they turn them into good little hairdressers, you know, with skills and a career of them, and now they've stopped, and like you say, Peter, that's one little business. It's happening everywhere.
Totally, but it's happening all over the place, Andrea. You make some really good points. Thank you for them. Let's go to Mark in Lincolnshire, who has given me a ring. Mark, what are your thoughts?
Hello there, Peter.
Hi, Mark. How are you doing?
Hi, not so bad. Yourself?
Yeah, very well, thank you. What would you like to say this evening?
I was kind of looking at a bigger picture going forward. You know, certainly for the next year, I think. I was kind of had in the back of my mind what Farage had said previously about a 2027 election.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's still likely?
Well, I think I've got a theory on this. With this rhetoric that they had at the last, the locals there this last week, with, vote reform, get Starmer out.
Mm-hmm.
I think what Farage and Reform are actually hoping for is an early election.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they've seen the writing on the wall to an extent in so much as their own polling, which has dropped, for all at the moment, yes, they're still polling the highest in the country.
Yeah, but it's gone down a few points. You're right to point that out. But I mean, Farage will say, if it happens in the next few days, Farage will say, we told you, vote reform, get Starmer out. That's happened.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's an issue there anyway, because I don't actually think this is going to happen, because at the end of the day, if they would suddenly, let's say they're going to call a snap election, they kick Starmer out, they call a snap election, which is the theory, and I hear a lot of Reform supporters that call.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think why would the turkeys vote for Christmas?
Well, this is it, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, it's not just that either, is it? Because if they were to call one, then essentially they're eating out of Farage's hand at that point, and they really don't want to do that. They certainly don't want to be seen to do that. But yeah, I just think that, as I say, I think if it was to happen, I mean, they've got so many issues, because as I say, they are falling in the polling, generally speaking, overall. I mean, obviously, we'll see how that goes over.
Although they've just done very, very well in the local elections. But I know what you mean. But any opposition party, Mark, is going to say, do you know what, election, bring it on. As soon as there is a new leader elected, every opposition party is going to say, right, there now needs to be a general election. They're not going to fear that, are they?
No, should they really? At the end of the day, I mean, I think, from my own personal perspective, I would actually prefer that as much as anything else.
Okay.
Obviously, as you know, I'm a Restore Britain member.
Yeah.
I know for a fact, certainly if anything happens, between now and this time next year, there's no way we're going to do anything, but it would give us an opportunity to have some targeted campaigns and maybe get
I think it's highly unlikely there will be an election this year. I still think 2029, I think Labour will eke it out as long as they possibly can. Mark, thanks for your comments, appreciate them. Quite a number of texts. The fastest way to a general election will be Rayner being Prime Minister, and they know it, so it won't be her. Dan in Kent says the unfortunate truth of all of us sitting on the right-wing politics, Starmer is probably our best option for a 5-year constitutional government. Well, it's a really, really interesting point. So many people making great points, wanting different things. What do you think, and how should it go? Well, we'll speak to some very informed observers. Kevin Schofield, the political editor of the Huffington Post, will be with us in just a few minutes' time. And let me know what you think, because in the next hour there's plenty of opportunity to comment. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. Thank you so much for joining me in the Evening Exchange. I hope that you've been with me for the last 2 hours, but if you haven't and are just joining us, there's loads to talk about, mainly about Keir Starmer. We've got some experts on the Labour Party coming up, and I want to hear from you as well. 0344 499 1000. We're now at, I think, 87 Labour MPs who are saying that Keir Starmer should go. We've got over 100, but 2 of them actually, according to one of our guests who's coming up in a minute or 2, have said that actually they shouldn't be on the list of people who are being loyal to him. So there's lots to get into in all of this. There are certainly loyalists. There are others as well who have resigned from government, including Miata Fanboulay, one of the government ministers, former government ministers we'll hear from in just a second. Lots to discuss this hour. Do get in touch. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell, or on Instagram it's Cardwell Peter. You can also send me a voice note, you can send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk right through until 10 o'clock. It's Starmer drama time. Right then, let's hear from the recently resigned Labour Minister Miata Fanboulay. She said this to Sky News a little bit earlier on in the evening.
Is Andy Burnham your number one candidate as we sit here now?
Well, look, if Andy Burnham was in Parliament, I'd be supporting him. Right. And ultimately, I think we need a process that allows, whether it's Andy, Wes, whoever else, to essentially say what they're going to do for the country.
And if Ed Miliband was to be a sort of caretaker leader until Andy Burnham got here, you'd back that?
No, look, it's not for me to say what the process looks like. I wish I could wave a magic wand and all of this could go away and we're in a settled state on the other side of it.
You're hating this, basically?
Yeah, all of us are.
Really? I'm not sure. This is what Darren Jones said. He's the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, Starmer's representative on Earth, Chief Secretary, and he is loyal. This is what he said this morning.
I'm not going to get ahead of any decision that the Prime Minister may or may not take. He was very clear yesterday that he will not be walking away, as some of my colleagues have asked him to do. I've observed we've got over 400 Labour MPs in the House of Commons. I don't belittle the, I think now 70 who have raised concerns publicly. All I would say is that the vast majority of us are focused on using the time we have in government to be able to deliver the types of change for people across the country that we're also passionate about delivering, but that we have to work together then as a party in this new political era of five-party politics, of the rise of populist parties in our country, to be able to set the course for winning that next election. And as I say, I believe we can win that election because I think our Labour values of equality, of opportunity, of solidarity, of bringing the country together and rising to the challenges of the future are the values that will win at the ballot box in 2029.
Kevin Schofield is with me now. He's the political editor of Huffington Post UK. Listening to Darren Jones there, I know that was this morning, but I mean, solidarity, I don't think the Labour Party has a huge amount of solidarity. Bringing the country together. The country is far more divided now than it was 2 years ago. And he also thinks that Labour can win the next election. And he thinks Keir Starmer should be safe. Is Labour really thinking that? Is that what some people in Labour, do they honestly believe in their heart of hearts from all your conversations today in Westminster, Kevin, that Starmer can hold on?
I mean, he certainly is in a better position tonight than he was this morning. There's no doubt about it. I think people you're speaking to this morning before the cabinet meeting were saying it's done, it's over, he'll be gone, or he'll certainly have announced his intention to stand down later today. Okay. That didn't happen. I think it was quite a smart move by them, actually, the way that he confronted at the beginning of the cabinet meeting and said, look, put up or shut up. Then he shut down the conversation. And then right after it, you saw those loyalist ministers coming out, very unusually speaking to the media, backing him, echoing what he'd said about, you know, if people have the numbers, then they should come forward. But right now they haven't. And that really put the onus back on Wes Streeting, who later left without a word, most unlike Wes Streeting. So as things stand at the moment, Keir Starmer looks certainly, I wouldn't say safe, but safer than he was this morning.
Do you think the timing of the King's speech helps him as well?
Yeah, I think it does. I think that provides a bit of a fire break to the current furore and speculation. You know, we know that West Streeting is going in to see Keir Starmer tomorrow, but he's not going to say anything afterwards because he doesn't want to interfere or overshadow the King's speech. I mean, clearly there are, they don't want to annoy the King. Effectively, you know.
Yeah, and Buckingham Palace has said, be careful not to bring the King into the politics of the country, into the politics of what's going on in the party politics.
Absolutely, and it's an incredible situation. We've got the King setting out the government's plans for the next parliamentary term when we don't know whether the government will still be standing in a week's time. So it may well all become rather moot quite quickly. But unless West Streeting can get the numbers, unless Andy Burnham can announce a seat where he plans to stand, although as I understand it, there's no plans imminently for him to do that, then really there is no leadership contest and Keir Starmer is safe. But Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was just wondering if we know why Andy Burnham was in London today. I was trying to find out, but I couldn't get an answer on that. Do we know?
No, I think he was basically here to speak to MPs, although why he couldn't just do it on the phone, why he had to turn up at Euston Station. It was a bit of a media scrum.
Did you say, there was a tweet earlier today you saying, Euston, we have a problem. I wondered if that was a Kevin Schofield special.
No, it wasn't. I wish it had been, though.
Yeah, so it's not a bad line. From Andy Burnham's perspective, I suppose his physical presence does matter, but when it comes to West Streeting, when it comes to Angela Rayner, do you see any of these people actually moving? I mean, I know that's an impossible question, but is there any momentum? Is there any sense that 81 signatures are being are actually being collated for any of these candidates right now?
I mean, I certainly think West Streeting has been trying, but as we understand him, I spoke to one person earlier who thinks that he's actually lost some numbers over the past couple of days, and he is not at 81. I think a lot of people have been a little bit angered by the fact that a lot of West Streeting supporters, MPs, have come out, among those who have come out to call on Keir Starmer to stand down. West Streeting allies in the ministerial ranks who have resigned, and I think a lot of people see this as some sort of proxy war, some attempt by West Streeting, which his camp deny, we have to say, but they see it as an attempt by West Streeting to foment some sort of coup, and then he can come in afterward, and once the leadership election has been triggered, and throw his hat into the ring. He doesn't want to be seen to be the one who precipitates it himself.
Well, Michael Heseltine, of course, who famously said, he who wields the knife seldom wears the crown, although that was about the Conservatives rather than necessarily Labour. So we've got the King's speech tomorrow. We've got debates on that, which will be led by the Prime Minister. Kemi Badenoch, of course, will be speaking in the House of Commons too. She'll have plenty to say to the Prime Minister, not just about the King's speech, but about his position as well, and Parliament coming back. That adds another level of headache, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it does. I mean, it means that MPs, Labour MPs, are rubbing shoulders with one another, are able to compare notes, to plot, to discuss what they think is going to happen. And I'm sure Kemi Badenoch is licking her lips tonight, thinking about, I mean, she's got so much ammunition to throw at Keir Starmer tomorrow. She's rather spoilt for choice. I mean, and if you just zoom out, even if Keir Starmer is still clinging on, the fact that approaching 90 of his MPs have publicly said they want him to quit, I mean, that is not a great place for a Prime Minister to be. He's obviously been badly damaged, but he's determined.
Can he bring it back, though? I suppose, it's really interesting you mentioned that, Kevin, because we haven't really heard this perspective, actually, this evening, that, I agree with you that things are probably a bit better now than they were this morning. Is there a chance this can go away? We're still in a position where, government ministers have resigned here.
Yeah, absolutely, and they will need to be replaced. I mean, we don't know if more ministers will resign. I mean, if it stops at 4, then he'll probably be okay, I think. It's whether a cabinet minister decides to go now. There's all sorts of speculation earlier that Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, who we know was one of the cabinet ministers yesterday, who told the Prime Minister he should consider his position. She's been keeping a low profile. There was speculation that she might be ready to resign, although that has been denied by her camp. I think if someone of that level was to resign, then I think the whole thing could very quickly unravel. But right now, Downing Street are just about managing to keep a lid on it. But whether that position holds for the next 24, 48 hours, we'll just have to wait and see, I think.
It'll be very, very interesting, and no doubt we will follow your coverage. Kevin Schofield, thank you. Kevin Schofield is political editor of HuffPost UK. Simon's in Sevenoaks and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Simon, what do you make of this? What do you think about Starmer's position, and who should replace him?
To be quite honest, I think Starmer's position is untenable. He's unpatriotic. He doesn't.
Do you know what, Simon? Sorry to interrupt you. I think you've got your telly or your radio on in the background. Could you maybe turn it off, and then we'll bring you back on? It's just interfering a little bit. I'll come back to Simon in a second. In the meantime, I'll just play a couple of voice notes. Damon on Starmer. This is what Damon thinks.
This Starmer drama, it's ridiculous. He was the first one to say when it becomes intolerable for any leader to carry on, they should do the decent thing and go. He's completely just thrown that out the window. And it just seems to be 20 years of no politicians having values or respect for the British people. We have been round this circus so many times now. It's ridiculous. They get all the cameras set up at Downing Street today, this morning. They open the door. The first person to walk out the door, Larry the Cat. Now, Larry the Cat has seen off 6 Prime Ministers, and if he can't wait to get out of 10 Downing Street, then there's no chance at all for Starmer whatsoever. Something needs to be done, because the old values in politicians is long and truly dead and got buried.
Larry speaks for the nation, or more accurately, meows for the nation. Tristan has been in touch too on Starmer, and then we'll go back to Simon. Let's hear what Tristan says.
The Conservatives are encountering exactly the same problems that Labour are encountering. And by that I mean we've got a massive problem with mass migration. A massive problem with that, so much so that we've had almost 10 million people in the past 10 years. And also we've got the major problem with energy. And these are the same problems that Conservatives were dealing with, and it's just been passed on to Labour. Anyone who else gets in isn't going to deal with any of these problems. So anyone who does anything is pointless. Nothing is going to change, and it's pretty irrelevant, to be honest.
Thank you, Tristan. Let's go back to Simon. Simon, you were cut off in your prime. Go ahead, please. Tell us your thoughts.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, my apologies for the...
no worries at all. No worries at all. You just tell us what you think now. We can hear you clearly.
Oh, great stuff. Now I'm a patriot. I served 10 years in the British Army. So because of that, I have a great deal of faith in people who served in the military. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't believe that Keir Starmer is a patriot. I don't believe that any of the front runners are a patriot. However, there is one person who is newly elected in 2024, and that is Al Kearns, former Royal Marines colonel, gave up his generalship, won a military cross, 5 operational tours, an OBE, which means he's a good organiser. This man is pro-military, he's pro-national sovereignty, he could unite the country. But are the Labour Party going to vote for him to lead the party?
They would argue, I think Al Kearns is a really admirable person. He has given huge service to this country, and as have you, Simon, by the way, and thank you for it. He has done really things we'll never know about that are incredibly brave. You don't win the military cross for nothing. You don't get an OBE for nothing when you're in the military. I wonder whether they would say he's politically experienced enough.
What does political experience matter? For the past 30 years, we've had
some very, very politically experienced people who've been dreadful.
Experienced people going through and running government, and they've failed. Time after time after time. How about let's have a patriot? Let's have somebody who puts Britain first. And now, if you are left-leaning and you want to vote Labour, then have Al Kearns as your leader.
Very interesting thoughts on that, Simon. Thank you for that interesting one on Al Kearns there. Amy's been in touch as well on Twitter and says if Andy Burnham wants to run, he is going to have to be really confident that he can win a seat, especially as he would have to give up his mayoralty. But there is no Labour safe seat anymore, so where is he going to stand? Amy, that's a really good point, and he's grappling with that right now. On breakfast clubs, that's come up a few times during the show, and Patricia says Tesco cereals cost less than £1, milk £1.65 for 2.2 litre, no sugar needed, toast bread 75p, spread and jam less 1%. Educate yourself. These breakfast clubs are for lazy, no decent parent would send a child without breakfast or cleaning their teeth. No mention of that. Well, we know that there are many dental problems as well. Patricia, I actually don't buy breakfast cereal. I'm more of a toast man myself, and it is a very fair point. It is a very fair point that there are. I don't really understand what breakfast clubs are for. Now, there may be lots of parents out there who say, well, it allows us to go into work earlier, or it makes sure that kids who don't have breakfast at home get a meal the same way that free school meals in schools do anyway. But really, honestly, there are parents out, well, we know there are parents out there who don't feed their kids. We know there are really rubbish parents out there, but that should really be the exception rather than the rule. And I wonder whether we're asking the state to do more and more things for us. And whether we can't, as parents, I'm not a parent, but many people are, just take responsibility ourselves. Leslie says, I think there will be a general election sooner than 2029. If people can't afford food or eat and the markets won't lend, we will end up with a financial crash. Oh, I'm not sure I can go through another one of those, to be honest. Phil says, unfortunately, nobody trusts these ministers. How many have had problems with living by the rules? Rayner with her taxes, Reeves with renting her property, Starmer with his freebies, corruption minister accused of corruption, even Polanski today failing to pay his council tax. The list goes on and on and on. Yeah, you're right, actually. He said, and he was Zach Polanski, I was about to say Roman Polanski. Zach, he's accused of other things. Zach Polanski said that he only stayed on a houseboat for a short period of time. Actually, we think it now may be 3 years. He may have to pay back a lot of council tax. They're out for themselves, says Phil. If they were paid £50,000 a year without the opportunity to claim expenses, see how many would do it for the good of the country. Debbie says Angela Rayner has carer's experience. She brought a flat on the opposite corner of the country from her disabled son. That's no carer to me, who's the real carer for my child. Ben says we are suffering from our Biden years. We follow the United States. The only problem is we can't sack the civil service like we can. David in the Cotswold says, Peter, I will call it. The bond market, see Burnham and Rayner, is unacceptable. Should either become the next Prime Minister, there will be a fiscal event. Bond rates will rise on the back of a further increase in borrowing. In late 2027, you will see a general election. The problem is the country will be literally bankrupt by that stage, says David. Another person says the markets are already jittery. Interest rates will rise if people can't afford heating and food. That's when they say enough is enough. Darryl in Lincoln. Darryl, I haven't heard from you in a while. Great to hear from you. Starmer won't go until he is absolutely pushed out by everyone in his party. He's a career politician. He was a career lawyer, but as most are, he was able to camouflage himself easily. But with the spotlight on him as Prime Minister, it became obvious quickly to the public that he is only interested in his own personal interests. He wanted a successful term, and then he wants to become a Lord. Even his own party has finally realised what he is about. He has no interest in the country or the British people. He won't care about how damaging or unpopular he is. He just wants to further his career, in Darryl's opinion. Another person says, I do hope before the next election that the voting system is properly explained by all media outlets, especially the BBC. I don't think the electorate understands split votes. We cannot allow another left-wing government to dictate, otherwise Great Britain is finished. And Starmer should hang his head in shame for making an untold number of farmers take their lives to protect their families. Also, Jess Phillips, that's putting another spanner in the works of the rape gang inquiry by quitting. Ernie, final one before the break, says, who are the actual far left in this country? The far left want to abolish capitalism, bring most of the money-making companies into public ownership, enforce extreme equality across the board. Does this look like any of the people who purport to this ideology? The likes of people, comedians, ex-footballers, football pundits, actors, pop stars, politicians. We all know who they are. The problem is these people who really want to impose their left-wing ideology on the real working class are multimillionaires with massive property portfolios who have no intention of sharing their wealth to create the equality they want to impose on the rest of us. There's no such thing as the far left. They're all champagne socialists and oligarchs, in Ernie's opinion. Lots more to come. Lots more discussion, lots more debate. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. I will take as many callers as I can. I have 2 more guests in this programme, and I will take as many callers as I can between now and 10 o'clock. Use the break, lift the phone, make the call, and let me know your opinion. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
so down! When you get the offer to be the voice of a sheep...
Yes, you can only dream, really.
Kelly Riley and Cole Hauser! Well, how much of Rip does your husband in real life have about him?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's mad. He's
Kirsty and Phil!
Can we talk about one other thing?
We can talk about loads of things. It's an interview.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Breaking news from Iran, and that is that there has been an earthquake in Tehran measuring 4.6 on the Richter scale. We'll bring you any more news on that we get in the next 37 minutes before 10 o'clock. We'll talk to James Mathieson in a second, former Labour spokesman, but I want to tell you about some new appointments. We've just heard from Downing Street. These are replacing a lot of the ministers who have left. So we know that Miata Van Bulla, Jess Phillips, Alex Davies-Jones and Dr Zubair Ahmed have left the government. Those were the resignations today. And there are a few appointments, of course, to be made into other roles as well. So Nessel Callaskin is Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State of the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. Natalie Fleet is going to be a Home Office Minister. Catherine Atkinson, a Justice Minister. Preet Kaur-Gill is going to be at the Health Department of Health and Social Care. Jen Kitchen is going to be a Government Whip, as is Deirdre Costigan. And Sean Davies is going to be an Assistant Whip. I have heard of some of those people, but not all of them, it must be said. There are a lot of people in the Labour Party, and of course many of them filling the roles that have been vacated by these people resigning. Paul says, evening Peter, evening Paul. Al Carnes has lost a lot of veteran support on social media over his abstaining over Labour's retroactive drive to prosecute Northern Ireland veterans under ECHR, and we've certainly been covering that an awful lot on this programme. He was conveniently out of the country when that happened. It's also, I think there's a story to be told that he was the Veterans Minister previously, and he's now still a Defence Minister, but he's moved portfolios. I don't think that is an accident at all. Mac Enza has been in touch on Twitter to say, Al Carnes, where was he for the Northern Ireland legacy vote? Did he vote against it? No. As an ex-military man, he should have voted against it. He didn't. I'm ex-military. He has no credibility. Mac also always says, put the pen down, Peter. Keep it down. Do not pick it up again. I've got a highlighter now. Is that better? Shall I hold the highlighter? Is that okay? Yes, I have been annotating the running order, but it has changed over the course of the evening. And one of the best things about these shows is that things do change. People pull out, people come in, we hear from lots of people, sometimes we get guests we didn't know we were having. It's all marvellous. It's the best thing about Talk, because no running order should be the same at 7 o'clock as it is at 10 o'clock is my strong view on all of this, although it may have shortened the lives of some of those behind the scenes who are doing all the hard work. James Mathieson is with me now, the former Labour spokesman. James, good to see you this evening. What a day, what a couple of days for Labour. Interestingly, Kevin Schofield was saying about 15 minutes ago, he thinks it's calmed down now. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's gone a bit quiet and it's certainly settled. But the kind of predictions generally that I was listening to and that I trust were kind of along these lines, that if we get to the end of today and everyone starts to have their Horlicks, then they'll settle down a bit, and then tomorrow, it's all because of tomorrow, right? We might have seen it continue into tomorrow, but because tomorrow is such a big and pivotal day, if he got close enough to it, and I think perhaps this was their strategy as much as there is any strategy, was to survive today, to get to the King's Speech tomorrow. And I mean, that I've had it confirmed in the past half hour to me from a source of mine very close to Downing Street, who says that indeed that phone call from Buckingham Palace did come through to Downing Street, and that question of, you sure you want to go ahead with this? The King's been watching the news, kind of.
Very interesting. So they could have, in theory, put off the state opening of Parliament. I mean, I was in Westminster today, and a load of roads were closed off. They're getting all the preparations ready, all the security lockdowns and everything like that. And that is planned months in advance. But it's become very, very political. And also, when you have the King reading out essentially a programme for government for a Prime Minister who may not be there by the end of the week.
Yeah, I can't wait for my government's going to do this, and the kind of whether anyone can keep themselves together and stop themselves from laughing, you know. Indeed, while he stands alongside Kemi Badenoch and listens to it. So it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be a bit of an embarrassing day, let's be honest, for Labour and for the government, because we don't even know what the next day holds, and we're talking about the future of it. It's not where any political party with their majority in government should be only 2 years into this. So it's a real shame. And all of those people today who I've been arguing with in the media and kind of done since 6 o'clock this morning, being opposite, the likes of Tom Baldwin, had people from the FT who were saying we can't get rid of Starmer because it'll really upset the financial markets. I couldn't care less about the financial markets right now in this moment.
But lots of people do, James. Lots of people have mortgages. Lots of people have investments. Lots of people have pensions. And if there's instability in our country and in those markets, that affects people massively.
Of course it does, but the long-term impact of Keir Starmer staying put right now and continuing to limp on day after day after day is terminal. It results in nothing good, really. And the only beneficiary of any of this, and I'm sure many of your viewers and listeners and indeed callers I've listened to will be pleased about this, but the only beneficiary is Nigel Farage.
Who do you think the Labour beneficiary is? Who do you think is happiest about this, either around the cabinet table or perhaps even in Manchester or perhaps even on the phone to HMRC trying to get their case sped up?
Well, it's not Wes Streeton, put it that way, because he needed Starmer to go today because tomorrow, obviously, once the King's speech is done, it buys him time for things to settle down. The momentum dies away a bit from the resignations. They put the new appointments in tonight, as you've just read out. People who have been in the media, Preet Gill, earlier today was doing our best to defend Starmer, probably to get one of these jobs, I don't know. But all of these...
I'm sure it didn't harm her.
Who will replace these figures, and then they can go on as if nothing's happened, right? And the momentum dies away. That's their hope. Wes Streeton, however, doesn't have time on his side because Andy Burnham will be hoping for a longer process. Angela Rayner, who would go for it, she would go for it. She'd have my backing, but she wants Burnham from everything.
Why would Angela Rayner get your backing? Why is it that you think she'd be a good Prime Minister?
I think Angela would communicate better than any of them. I know Angela, trust Angela. I think she's driven by something, and that something might not be things that you and I agree with, Peter, but she's driven by something rather than nothing, which Keir Starmer is kind of been the central issue with him, right? Is that nothing other than perhaps public service, to his credit, and the guy is a nice guy, I like him, but he is not driven by politics. He has no ideology underpinning him. And I'm the person who criticised the Corbyn years for being too ideological. It's just that...
But you need somebody who believes something. I mean, is Starmer a nice guy? He's been very ruthless. He's got rid of Morgan McSweeney, Sue Gray. He's on his 5th Director of Communications. I mean, is he a nice person? Because I know you've got to be ruthless in politics. I get that. As someone who was sacked as special advisor, I was on the receiving end of that ruthlessness. But at the same time, is he actually a nice person?
Well, you've been in his kitchen, Peter. I haven't. So I don't.
No, it wasn't his kitchen. Wasn't his kitchen. Read the article in the Times. It was the kitchen of someone else.
You know him better than I do, is my point. I've only met him a couple of times. Although, interestingly, the one time I did meet him for the first time was in 2018 at the Labour Party conference, and he was the shadow Brexit secretary, right? And he came to this terrible fringe event, which 6 people were at. And I was one of the 6, and he was kind of underwhelmed, and he was talking about it. But he let slip a bit because, it's a small room.
Yeah.
And he said in that moment, and I just remembered this the other week, I don't really care about politics. He was like, I like the law. I don't really care about politics. And it just makes sense, doesn't it? He doesn't care about politics. And people can say that's great. We don't want politicians, but we do.
We do. We need them. Do you know what? It doesn't matter if you're a lawyer, somebody who loves politics, hates politics, whatever. We need leadership, and we're not getting that. And I know what you mean about Angela Rayner. She would not be my choice at all, but at least she believes something. At least she is someone who would take some people with her, even though the direction of the country would not be a direction that I would want it to go in.
We could even argue that, like, the difference of how she would do an election, right? For example. But right now in governance, we need direction. We need to go in a direction, right? And she would take the country in a direction. She would take a country in a direction I would like to see it go in as well. But of course, the Labour Party itself, especially the PLP, is not always in line with the membership. It's not always in line with the wider Labour movement. So I'm probably being more ambitious with that than I think other people would.
It'll be interesting to see what Angela Rayner does over the next few days, if anything. James, always worth talking to you. James Mathewson there, former Labour spokesman. Thanks for joining us on the programme. Thanks to Darren, who says, I was racking my brain, but I couldn't think of one person to replace Starmer. That's how bad things are, says Darren, who is in Jersey at the moment, but he's from Tyrone, which is good. Well, Darren, that's great. A lot of my family are from Tyrone. My grandmother and grandfather lived in 6 Mile Cross and Beera, and there are other relatives in Omagh and Newton Stewart as well. So Darren, glad to hear about your Tyrone connection. Lots of people in touch about all sorts of aspects of this. One person says, I hope these MPs who've willingly given up their jobs today realise they can't sign on for benefits right away. And another person says Starmer will not go anywhere because nobody in the Labour Party has the ability to do the job. Unfortunately, he'll feel invincible. We will all pay for that. I'm thinking of going to France, getting a dinghy back, as I will be better off. The question is, of course, does Starmer, is he now safe? And that's a really interesting point that Kevin Schofield made a little bit earlier on. We're going to get further insight from Aubrey Allegretti. He's chief political correspondent at The Times, and he's going to give us his thoughts on his day at Downing Street in and around Westminster. I was in Westminster for probably about an hour today. I was chatting to quite a few people, but Aubrey's been there all day, every day, and he will tell us his perspective of where things are right now, including something he put on Twitter a little bit earlier on about some MPs on the loyalty list, as it were, who are perhaps not quite as loyal as they are being publicly said that they are. Lots to discuss here on Talk. In just a second, we'll take your calls as well, right up to 10 o'clock, and speak to Petri Hoskin as well. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's go to Parliament now, and Aubrey Allegretti is with us. He's chief political correspondent of The Times. Aubrey, how are you doing?
Hey, good evening, Peter. It's been a long day, but very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm grand, thanks. It certainly has been a dramatic day. Where do you think things stand right now? Just talk us through what the scoops that you've been gathering.
Certainly. Well, I suppose the quiet coup that started at the start of the day has turned into quite a bloody battle. And Monday saw a succession of PPSs, the most sort of junior rung on the ministerial ladder, resigning in protest at Keir Starmer, trying to force him out. That obviously didn't work, and the Prime Minister fought on this morning, leading his meeting of Cabinet. Today we've seen 4 ministers resign their posts, and the total of MPs who've called for the PM to quit rise to 91. It's obviously still quite a sort of febrile situation, and Number 10 has been out fighting. They've replaced those ministers that have resigned today. They have coordinated a letter of about 112 Labour MPs who they say are loyalists and have come out to support the Prime Minister. But as I've discovered, not all of those people who signed that letter are saying that they actually gave their support to the Prime Minister. I've identified 3 MPs so far who said that their names were on that list, but they didn't actually give their permission to do so.
So was there a conversation that was had with those MPs to say, you're loyal to the Prime Minister, aren't you? And they went, yeah. And then they suddenly find their name on a list. I mean, how did their names get on the list if they didn't consent to it?
So there's been a big kind of ring-around operation taking place today where effectively PPS is acting on behalf of government ministers, and PPSs are effectively the sort of most junior rung on the ministerial ladder, were calling and WhatsApping colleagues trying to get them to sign this letter. It seems that some of them were slightly overzealous in trying to understand which MPs were giving their support or not. And 2 MPs that I spoke to didn't want to go public because they didn't want to sort of look like complete disloyalists by withdrawing their name. But one of them, Rupa Huck, has tweeted, she's posted on X, formerly known as Twitter tonight, to say that she didn't consent to her name being added to the list. So again, it suggests that it's still quite a chaotic situation, and there's all to play for ahead of that showdown meeting between Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, and also potential challenger to Keir Starmer, with Keir Starmer himself tomorrow morning.
What do you make of the political operation? You talked about those junior government aides making those kind of overtures to various people, trying to get their support. Yet Starmer was out and about talking to apprentices today. That seems bizarre behaviour. Surely he should be in the cabinet room, huddled with his staff, trying to get as much support as he can.
I sort of get the impression that the Prime Minister doesn't want to create this atmosphere that he is in a bunker. He wants to present that things are basically business as usual. And to a certain extent, it's understandable because the King's speech is being delivered tomorrow by the monarch in Parliament, which is where I'm talking to you from now. So I think lots of people in Number 10 don't want to look like they're worrying too much. They want to show that the Prime Minister's getting on with, in their words, the day job. But obviously that is the familiar refrain of Prime Ministers who are sort of resisting pushes against them. It's what we've heard from Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, a whole host of people who wanted to present this image as ignoring the sort of infantile squabbling in their own party and suggest that they were just focused on the day job, whereas in actual fact, obviously, all of those people eventually succumbed to the pressure. I guess the question for Keir Starmer is whether or not any cabinet ministers will really go over the top. There is suggestions this evening that Wes Streeting has bottled it. There are AI images circulating from Labour MPs on WhatsApp of Wes Streeting with bottles of ale, basically trying to sort of foment this idea that he is giving up in his quest to try and
I remember
unseat
Butler
Keir Starmer.
Brown back in 2008. Aubrey, you were probably in nappies at the time, but it was Butler Brown back in the day. So it is. I mean, you make a very you sort of allude to a very key point in all of this, and that politics is all about timing. The King's speech tomorrow you've talked about as well, with Buckingham Palace trying to say, look, try to keep us out of it as much as possible. The party, the down and dirty, nitty-gritty party politics of it all. I just wonder, you talked about Wes Streeting today. Do you think his time is perhaps over? And what happens next in all of this? Or do you know?
Well, the Health Secretary is going to have this sort of quite crunch talks with the Prime Minister tomorrow. He's expected to express his frustrations and ask what the Prime Minister's plan is to sort of sort out the mess that's been created in the last few days. But it does seem like momentum is slightly ebbing away from him. It's notable that 3 of the 4 ministers who resigned today seem quite closely aligned to Wes Streeting, even though he's obviously completely disparaged any idea that he has anything to do with this sort of coup. He's saying, these people are acting independently. But I was told today that these announcements were effectively being drip-fed, that they were being coordinated by, in quotes, Wes's people. He obviously has denied any sort of direct knowledge of or association with the people who have quit. But it is interesting to see whether momentum is slipping away from him. And there was one key ministerial ally of his who was on resignation watch today and quite late this evening confirmed that they wouldn't be resigning after spending all day not responding to messages messages. So I think there are lots of people wondering whether Wes Streeting has slightly given up or whether he's going to go over the top and be ballistic, because they're concerned that tomorrow, on the day of the King's speech, when the monarch's in Parliament, they don't want to create a sort of awkward scene dragging the King into these political sort of shenanigans. That's the concern, I think, that's being aired by MPs.
Is there any reason Andy Burnham's in London other than to make mischief?
Well, he was supposed to be speaking at I think a conference organised by a health think tank, and obviously he's been no stranger to making massive interventions on the economy and trying to effectively burnish his sort of leadership credentials. I was told that some of Andy Burnham's allies have been ringing round members of Labour's National Executive Committee. That's the body that can effectively decide whether or not he could run to be an MP again. It blocked him from running in January, but they've been trying to corral members of the NEC into letting him stand in future. I guess the question is, if no one is willing to sort of pull the trigger first, to use a metaphor, then who is Andy Burnham going to stand against? If he leaves it too late, then he risks eventually basically being locked out of a contest.
Yeah.
And if he comes too early, then people will think that he's just coming back to cause trouble and mischief for the leadership. So he's finding it very hard, I think, to find a way to put himself in the middle of this contest.
Lots to digest there, Aubrey. I think tomorrow's not going to be an early bath for you either. I think you're going to be very busy tomorrow too. Thanks for joining us, Aubrey Allegretti there, who is Chief Political Correspondent of The Times, and Rupa Hogg, the MP he was mentioning there, who wasn't too happy to have her name on this loyalty list. She had put on Twitter, "Surprised to see my name on this list when I haven't either signed any letter supporting the Prime Minister or called for the Prime Minister to go. Not very courteous of colleagues to put names down without their approval." So thank you to, well, very interesting to hear from what Rupa Hogg thinks there. We're monitoring what's happening in Iran as well. 4.6 on the Richter scale earthquake. No further news about casualties or fatalities or anything there. If we hear anything more between now and 10 o'clock, of course, we'll bring it to you. And we're going to go to the phones after the break to make sure everybody gets their say. If you want to get your voice on the air, there's still time. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
To be the voice of a sheep.
Yes, you can only dream, really.
Kelly Riley and Cole Hauser. Well, how much of Rip does your husband in real life have about him?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's mad.
He's Kirsty and Phil.
Can we talk about one other thing?
We can talk about loads of things. It's an interview.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
John's been in touch with a voice note on Starmer. This is what John has to say.
I look back at the people who have got in Keir Starmer's way, who have suddenly been moved out of the way. It started with Sue Gray, and she earned her passage into the civil service, and I think she could have been the first person that called Keir Starmer out, and that's why she was gone. Let's look forward through his primacy and look at the other people that have been moved out of the way. These are all people that could have sunk him. Here he is, still there, hanging on, and I can't help thinking that he's still being protected by someone somewhere who believe that the will of the people isn't important at all.
John, thanks for your message. Thanks also to Amy, who says the scary thing is that there are hardly any Labour MPs who could cut it as Prime Minister. Andy Burnham isn't even an MP, and he appears to be one of the best options. Allegedly, more than 76 Labour MPs want him to resign. That's an old figure, but there's a message previously. Just a few more will force this to happen. Come on and do the decent thing, says Amy. Tim on WhatsApp says, from Suffolk, says Burnham and Rayner are being slated by thousands on social media. The call from the peasants is a general election. We will deal with the fallout. MPs are stating they've been put on a loyalty list without permission. Well, that's right. Rupa Hug is one of them, and two others are saying anonymously anyway that they have been. Les has been in touch and says you'll have to go home and lie down in the darkened room after today, Peter. Do you take your work stress home? Then Jack sits in your lap and goes meow. Life is simple, politics is not. Les, I'm actually going to Times Radio to do a paper review for them at 10:30 if you want to listen to that, but I would not, of course, encourage you to switch over from the remarkable Pedri Hoskin, who is on between 10 and 1. We'll talk to her in a few minutes about what's coming up on her programme. And then tomorrow I'm on with Julia between 11 and 12 at least, because of course it is the King's Speech tomorrow. I will be in studio with Julia from 11, and Petri, as I say, we'll speak to her in a few minutes time. She's on between 10 and 1, and you'll have plenty of opportunity to have your say. I hope we get to as many calls as we can between now and 10. I'll shut up and let people talk, like Tony in Doncaster. Tony, what's your view?
Evening, Peter.
Good evening. Hi.
There's an old saying, how do I put it? You make your bed, you lie in it.
Yeah.
Effectively, I can't see Labour is in any way is going to call a general election in the next 3 years. So here's the question, and a lot of people are missing points tonight. What is to benefit by getting Rayner or one of the other crew in? It's only going to make the country for the next 3 years more extreme than ever. They've got a majority of 400, which means frighteningly they can pass more extreme measures through the Commons.
Well, we've got about 400 MPs. The majority is about 170, 175. But it's a decent point. They can basically do what they want. Yeah. My question within what you're saying, though, Tony, is if Starmer can't unite those 400 odd MPs, can Rayner, can Burnham, can Streeting?
Well, I'll go another stage. Why are we all blaming Starmer? Who voted him in? The public.
Okay.
Nobody ever rings up and takes accountability for this. Millions of people out there have voted this guy in. They've voted him in. And at the end of the day, you reap what you sow. And I think the best thing for this country is to take 3 years of punishment with this guy because he's incompetent. He's not dangerous. He's just useless. Where you could get somebody who's far more dangerous than him. And after the 5 years, when we're fed up, the country will learn never to get him in again. Because you reap what you sow if we get in a far more extreme leader than him.
I mean, the point is, Tony, that whoever the leader of the Labour Party is, they are going to want to hang on for as long as they possibly can. Right. The likelihood is we'll have a full 5 years of Labour, no matter who the leader is.
Yeah, exactly. So we might as well stay with this idiot because he's just a moderate idiot.
Okay. Tony, listen, thanks for your thoughts. Appreciate that. Graham is in Wokingham and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Graham, what's on your mind this evening?
Hi. Well, I think if he's going to keep power, he's got to, A, do something to the Greens. So get prosecutions on things like possible fraud of gaining money by deception, using false initials, qualifications, though he has got one of his own friends bench on that one. Rayner for the business with the schools, he takes out his enemies by having them brought down by the law.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you could argue that Angela Rayner was brought down by her own breaking of the law, but she may well be back. She may pay that fine and then become leader of the Labour Party. It's not outside the realms of possibility.
No, but she also really did deceive those children at a school, which was actually against the law. on political matters.
I mean, I think a lot of MPs say a lot of things that a lot of people disagree with. It's not necessarily a criminal matter.
I think you find that within a school setting, you aren't allowed to mislead that way.
I don't think that's true, Graham. I'm not quite sure where you're going with this, and I'm just going to end the call because I don't really quite understand what you're saying, Graham, to be brutally honest. Jamie's in Wales. Jamie, you're a new caller, and thanks for the call. I appreciate it. What would you like to say, Jamie?
Thank you. Hello, Peter. It's just one question that nobody's touched on really about Keir Starmer. Is Keir Starmer trying to hold on desperately because he wants to sign us up to the EU, which is, everybody knows that. And is he desperately hanging on so that he can sign the papers so that he makes sure that we're in the EU?
Do you think that's the number one thing that he is worried about, Jamie? Do you think that that's why he's hanging on? I mean, who leaves number 10 voluntarily? That's a whole other matter too, isn't it?
Well, the thing is, I think it's just a disaster. He can't hold on much longer. And, I mean, Nick Thomas-Symonds is over in the EU more than he should.
Mm-hmm. Although he is, I mean, Nick Thomas-Symonds is the minister who's meant to talk about our relations with the EU, so he's going to be in the EU quite a lot, is he not?
Well, definitely he is. He's doing nothing for Torbine, actually.
Is that where you live, Jamie?
Yes, but
okay.
He's doing a lot for the EU. And the other thing is, Mr. Kyle came out of number 10 today.
Peter Kyle.
And we're back in Keir Starmer. Oh, and I'm just on my way to the EU.
Right. So you think there's too much of this? There's too much talking to the EU?
Well, I think people should be looking more into it. When is he going to sign us back up? Is that part of his... he'd rather be in Davos than be in Britain. So is he angling for a job?
I'm sure he wouldn't. I'm sure he wouldn't say no to one, or in NATO, or to the UN, or something like that, or maybe the International Criminal Court. Jamie, really interesting points there, and thank you for them. Let's go to Charlie, who's in East Sussex. Charlie, you're on the air. What would you like to say?
Good evening, Peter.
Good evening.
Yeah, I think. Have you ever heard of a thing called a Gila monster? They're in the southwest part of America, New Mexico, and you can, if you're bitten by one of those, you can even cut its head off, and it still won't let go. And
wow!
That's what Starmer
that sounds pretty good. That's my nightmare sorted this evening, Charlie.
Well, don't lift any rocks in New Mexico because they're under those.
I will take that advice.
But so he's not letting go, and I've got this nasty feeling in the back of my mind. It's all about the project. He can't let go because the project isn't finished. Now, I think, we've got to look at this a little bit more seriously.
What do you mean by the project? What's the project?
Well, the project is closer and closer ties with the EU again, obviously.
You think that's the number one thing? You would agree with Jamie that that's the number one thing that Starmer cares about?
I think that's one of the things that he cares about. You've only got to look at his Fabian Society credentials. They're all members of this, really sinister organisation.
Are the Fabians that sinister?
Absolutely, they are sinister.
Okay.
Absolutely, any right-thinking person would think they were sinister.
Okay.
Even going back in time when they had their symbol was the wolf in sheep's clothing, wasn't it? Now look, these guys, they've got a vision. They've got this. They're trying to make a unitary Europe.
I suppose my question. I'm not doubting what you're saying, Charlie. But lots of people think that Starmer has been really, really ineffective as Prime Minister. What then makes him so incredibly competent when it comes to what you call the project?
Well, this is the thing that we're quite lucky about, because he's totally incompetent, and so that's our saving. really, in my mind. But I think that when you look at it, in his own mind, he wants to just keep grabbing on, grasping at not letting go. And again, it's all about, with him, the process. Is there a process to oust him? No one step forward.
Yeah.
He's got this meeting tomorrow.
With Wes Streeting, and we'll have to wait and see what comes out of that, Charlie, and certainly what happens with the King's speech as well, and whether all that goes as planned. Jenny's been in touch, says, what a day, been watching since 6 a.m. Absolutely brilliant coverage of today's shenanigans by all at Talk. Peter, you're my favourite. Well, Jenny, you're my favourite. Apart from Patty Hoskin, obviously,
well,
who
I was
is.
Gonna say, that would be...
I'm sitting right here.
Yeah,
you know.
that would be quite rude.
It would. Patty, what's coming up in your programme?
What a day.
I know.
I mean,
is he now safe though? That's my question. Has it gone away?
You know, this is the thing, isn't it? If you can stick, it's a 5-day rule, isn't it? If he can stay there for 5 days, he's staying. They'll give up. I mean, it's like the whole Peter Mandelson who.
Yes.
We've all moved on, right?
Yes.
Nobody cares about that anymore.
Yes.
The news just keeps on churning.
Keeps on moving.
And he knows as long as he can just cling on like a limpet.
I remember being in a newsroom once where it was around the time of, I think it was Brexit, and someone just shouted out, "Won't somebody stop the news?"
Yeah, I know. I feel a bit like that at the moment, I have to be honest with you. So we are kicking off with that. Will Wes Streeting get the 20% that he needs to mount a challenge? Will any of them get the 20% that they need to mount a challenge? It looks
Andy Burnham just happens to be in London today. What a coincidence. I know. Chin stroking there.
What a surprise. So we're going to be looking at that. We're also going to be looking at the China-US meeting. Trump is off there today. It starts tomorrow. And just exactly what is going to happen here. This is fascinating to me because what Xi wants is for Trump to absolutely declare he won't get involved if they take Taiwan. That's what he wants. So Taiwan is on the timetable tomorrow. Also, of course, the trade wars. They got up to 145%, if you remember, at one point. So that will be on the table, and semiconductors and rare minerals. But will Trump go there? He's on the back foot. He's the weaker player.